Letter carriers say they've been working for more than 500 days without a contract, and today they made their voices heard on the streets of
USPS failed to protect Eugene Gates and others.
Can't take it no more.
Mail carrier robbed at gunpoint.
Police are targeting these mail carriers for their universal keys.
Nearly 1,200 reported attacks and other assaults on postal workers just last year alone.
This is a disclaimer for it. So next generation carriers and our friends at Postal Rosies and guests are guests in an individual, speaking in individual capacity. They do not represent the views of the NALC, the United States Postal Service, or any other entity that is spoken for in this program.
Greg Samula, President of Branch 334 Framingham, also one of the co-hosts of Next Generation Podcast. But more importantly, if you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe to our monthly email newsletter. Go to nextgenerationcarriers.com and click email, fill your name and email, and click and subscribe. There'll be plenty of shows in the future you're going to be interested in, so please, or tonight while you're listening, please go to nextgenerationcarriers.com/email.
My name is James Cohn. I'm the president of Branch 764, Dedham, Massachusetts. I've been a letter carrier for 20 years. And tonight we are doing a presidential debate with the candidates.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole Rhine. I'm your current National Secretary Treasurer. I am a letter carrier from Lincoln, Nebraska. My branch is Branch 8, Lincoln, Nebraska. I've had many roles in the NALC. All the way from being a steward to a branch president, to a state president, to an arbitration advocate, to an RAA, and then I was the Assistant Secretary Treasurer before I became the Secretary Treasurer in 2014. And as you all know, currently I am running for the National President of the NALC.
Lew Drass here. I'm a member of Branch 462 in Huntsville, Alabama. I've been a letter carrier. I hired in at the post office in 1977, a long time ago. I've been a letter carrier since 1981. I've served as, I've carried mail for 20 years, served as branch president for 10 years. I served as a national business agent for 8 years, national director of city delivery for 4 years, and national vice president for 8 years, and I'm running for national president. And I retired in 2022 because my wife was sick, and now I'm back around, and I think I can make a difference.
It's Mike Caref here. I am a letter carrier from the city of Chicago. Began as a carrier on May 28th, 1994. It's been a wild ride. I've done everything with the union. I'm one of these types that go to every event, every training, every meeting, every social activity, everything. For a lot of years now. I became a full-time officer for the union when I was elected as the vice president in Branch 11 Chicago back in 2009. And then I was elected as the national business agent in Region 3, which is the state of Illinois, in 2014. So I've been on the executive council of the union's leadership body for the past 12 years. And I'm also a letter carrier, Route 16, 22nd Street Station. I'm making my business to carry my route at least 1 week out of every year so I can stay in touch with what's going on.
Hello, brothers and sisters. My name is Tony Milano from Branch 210 in Rochester, New York. And my question for the candidates is, what would be your plan concerning NALC's legislative agenda moving forward? With the new administration, how will you keep the momentum going forward? And what will you do to keep it from stalling and its members and our union losing ground? Thank you.
The question had to do with our legislative agenda. And we are absolutely ready to move forward with what we need to do legislatively with my team. There's kind of two sides to it. There's legislative things that we have introduced that are important, like the Protective Letter Carrier Act, the Equal COLA, buying back your time. Those are important legislative things that we want to get for our members. But there's also things we need to do with Congress to help the Postal Service to thrive and to modernize and do those kinds of things. And we have a list of those things that we need to take care of. There are some things that we can do, like raising the debt limit. There are things we can do and when I say the debt limit, the Postal Service has a borrowing authority that they can use to modernize. So that could be raised. The money we have set aside in our funds for retirement can be invested instead of put in treasury bonds, which will help the Postal Service. There are some other things that we also could do as well. There are things that we can do that relate to getting the Siegel report implemented that would move money back to the Postal Service from, that calculation they did in 1970. It's really hard. I know it's hard to get all this into 2 minutes, but there's also some other things that are written into the law about subsidies that can be given to the Postal Service. So legislation is really important to my team. We know how important it is to you. There are things, like I said, we want to do to help the Postal Service, which eventually helps you. There are things we want to pass that will make your life better, that you can buy your time back, that we need to do everything we can for your safety. And most importantly, we need to get our grassroots effort going and get all of our members behind everything that we need to do, because, you guys have that power out in the field to talk to your members of Congress and do all that. So we have that entire plan to move forward very strongly on the legislative front. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. We'll go over to Lew Drass. Go for it.
Okay. My plan starts with strengthening our PAC, the Letter Carrier Political Fund. I think we're woefully short on how many letter carriers contribute to our PAC. And that's going to be something we're going to talk about a whole lot. There's no reason why we should have 13 letter carriers out of 100 contribute to the Letter Carrier Political Fund when we have 93 out of 100 letter carriers belong to the union. Legislation is really important. And as far as letter carrier concerns, active letter carrier concerns, we need to pass the Protecting Our Letter Carriers Act. We need to pass the Federal Retirement Fairness Act, which Nicole explained. That's when you can buy back leave, buy back your non-career time. And the Protect Our Letter Carriers Act is all about stiffening penalties for people when they get assaulted and providing money to make the arrow key something that somebody can't steal from you. The third thing for retirees is the Equal COLA Act, and that affects every PERS retiree, every one of you. There's 50,000 now. There's 178,000 that will become PERS retirees, and that you get a reduced COLA instead of, if the inflation rises above 2%, you get a reduced COLA. Like this year, CSRS got 2.8% COLA increase at the first of the year, and PERS only got 2%. And that ain't right. That's something we ought to fix. As far as the postal reforms, I agree with everything Nicole's saying. We need to increase our borrowing authority. It's 15 billion now. It should be 30 to 40 billion. If you just look at the revenue difference between when they made 15 billion and what it is now, and the trying to right size what happened when the post office department became the Postal Service, and we were not given our funds.
All right. There we go. Mike, all you.
Hey, what is the rebuttal part? I'm a little confused on that.
If you want to go
for 2 minutes, and then what's the 1 minute?
If you want to go back and cover what Nicole or Lew had to say.
Or I could just take 2 minutes.
You get 2 minutes, and then if someone wants to say something, you get a minute for a rebuttal.
Oh, like after we're all done, somebody can
Yes.
jump in and they get a minute. Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification. And clock is ticking, and that's fine. Look, I think that I know Tony framed the question as, continue our legislative success. We've been somewhat successful and somewhat unsuccessful. I mean, let's not forget about the most drastic thing that has happened to us in recent memory, which was when all of the carriers that came in after 2014 had to pay 3.6%, 5 times as much into their FERS annuity without any additional monies coming into their annuity check. And there's been other things that have affected us negatively legislatively. I think the main thing about legislation is that we inspire the membership to fight for the things that are going to be valuable for letter carriers. I think I'm all in favor of a strong post office and the economy of the post office. And we got the Postal Reform Act passed in 2022, and that was great. But I think that legislation that directly affects letter carriers is going to be the most important legislation. You take the Protect Our Letter Carriers Act. It doesn't have the element that it should have, which is the postal police in it. And the postal police is something that the Postal Service doesn't want to have to fund. Well, that's one thing that would definitely help keep us safe out there. If we're promoting something, then we should have the things in there that are good for letter carriers. And we have an average of 500 letter carriers in every single congressional
15
district.
seconds left.
We should be able to push our agenda forward. And that's what I think that we need to do. And we need to find a solution for the Postal Service going forward economically.
Hey there, my name's Taylor Vennard out of Branch 763 in Columbia, Missouri. My question for the candidates is, what are your plans after this election if you are not elected into office?
If I'm not elected, I will also reach out to whoever is and offer any assistance that I can for our members. You know, I've dedicated my entire career to this union that I love very, very much. So it would be the same for me. I would definitely offer to help any way I can, any way that I can help our members. I will be there.
So if I'm not elected as a president, then I go back to my route as a letter carrier. That's it. I mean, I don't know. I know Lew is retired. I don't know about Nicole. I don't know about James, but I'm an active letter carrier. I'm running for president of the union if I'm not president of the union. And then, I go back. It's like when the escalator's not working. It still stairs. It still gets you there. I still have a job. I'm not going to be fired or anything. I go back to being a letter carrier, probably get on the list, try to make up for some of that money, hang out with the kids, have a more set schedule. And, like the other candidates mentioned, of course, if my union needs me in any capacity, my branch, my region, the national union to help out with anything that we're doing, I'm always going to be there. I love working for the union, but I love being a letter carrier. So that would be okay with me as well.
Hi, my name is Guy Pajorski. I'm in branch 3126, Royal Oak, Michigan. And this is a question to all the candidates. Back in 1991, there was the horrific shooting at the Royal Oak Post Office. Congressional studies concluded that it was a repressive management and the conditions were autocratic. And it doesn't justify what the shooter did, but it happened. And it happened at the post office. My question to the candidates is, back in, I think it was 94, 95-ish, there was a convention that the executive council did not pass the amendment or whatever you want to call it to to have accountability day. Okay, now what is accountability day? Originally, it was our branch established that you don't forget what happened because of management producing such a laborious situation, autocratic, abusive. They were a catalyst in some of the reasoning on why the tragic occurrence happened. And so at the convention, the executive councils denied the accountability day because they didn't like the date. That was the day of the shooting. Unless we changed the date to February 14th, which was the date of the Violence Against the Workplace Agreement that Sobrato signed afterwards. My question to the candidates: will you remember, honor, at least not honor, but just consider the fact that this occurred, this happened, it could happen again, to remind people that accountability day is something that we should all be aware of, because if, we don't want history repeating itself. Will you honor accountability day? Because lately there has been nothing mentioned on February 14th about accountability day. It was passed at a convention. It was never brought to a fruition in which the national would at least, recognize that date in remembrance or whatever the case. Thank you very much. I wish the universe gives you love today.
He brought up the fact of something that happened at the 94-95 convention. So I'm definitely going to go back and look at that. And we should definitely, recognize the things that have happened in our union. And if that's the case, then yeah, we're going to have Accountability Day. I also wanted to say that, it was tragic. There have been so many tragic things that have happened that none of us can come and cope with, right? Nobody wants that to happen. We've done some work on the JSOV, the Joint Statement on Violence. We have the JWIP program, and I think we can do better. I think those programs right now, there has to be joint agreement that there's a problem to go in there. And I think we need to make it to where if there are certain things that are happening, it's automatic. We don't need agreement to go in there. We need to be in and do whatever we can to deal with the horrible treatment that our members get. So I thank you so much for that question and that video. Thank you for letting us know about those actions at the convention. And I definitely will honor anybody we need to honor. And I want to make it to where our system is better to protect our members against bullying, violence,
15 seconds.
Safety on the street. This can go to a lot of things, but thank you so much for bringing that up. I really appreciate it.
So I did become aware of this, not in 1996. I first started going to the conventions in the year 2000, but we have a pretty extensive campaign team, and one of the members on the team was aware of this. We actually did post about this on February the 14th on our Facebook account, Caref for Pres. And at the time, I thought this person was just trying to save us all a little money and put Valentine's Day to the side and instead celebrate Accountability Day. But I did check it out. And I think it is something, especially if it's a resolution that passed at one of our conventions, that we should take up. And I think that the whole idea of accountability right now is where we're really missing out with the Postal Service. They restructured on their side, like in 2000 when DeJoy was the Postmaster General. And when they did that, they made it worse, the limited amount of accountability they used to have. Like there used to be a district manager that kind of oversaw all the operations, and you would be able to go to the district manager and there was at least some accountability there. Whereas now, and I know my fellow union reps are having the same problems that we're having, is that, there's no accountability. Nobody cares. There's no nothing. And I think that we need to work with the Postal Service on a better structure. And we need to make sure that we're putting them to the proper shame for the things that they do and the decisions that they make as an employer and as a service to the American people. And I think there's a few more things that we can do along those lines. And then when you have hostile work environments, I think that at the end of the day, we're trying to get rid of the supervisors. I think that is what solves the problem. There's no real value in having those supervisors browbeating and harass the carriers all day. We don't have a street standard. What am I having a discussion with a supervisor about how long it's going to take me if I don't have a damn street standard? That whole discussion, all of that is just detrimental and negative and leads to hostile work environments. But we can attack them through the grievance procedure for the time being and work toward getting rid of the board supervisor.
I remember Royal Oak very well. And that was where the Joint Statement on Violence and Behavior was born. And it was born on February 14th. And I do have much respect for that. We took this thing to national level arbitration to decide to find out what did that agreement really mean. Was it a contractual obligation or was it a pledge? And it turned out it's a contractual obligation. And we've been fighting in arbitrations ever since to implement that settlement, that national level award. And we have been successful in many cases for having a supervisor removed from supervising directly or indirectly letter carriers. And that comes from a process, and I don't know where everyone else does it, but I know Region 8, where the business agent sends a team in And the team goes and interviews the carriers, and somebody files the informal A, somebody files the formal A. And this happens, it has to happen. If you got a bad actor manager, they're going to be a bad actor manager. They're not going to just do something once. It's going to happen over and over. And it's frustrating, but you have to stay after it as a local union, and we're going to be there to help you with that. And that's one way to deal with this thing. As far as I did an award back in 2001, and that award invented or created the twin remedies type of resolve, where it's not just the supervisor, maybe it's the station manager telling the supervisor what to do. And you can work your way up the chain and have more people held accountable, like the postmaster, even a district manager's been held accountable
15
before.
seconds.
But all right, that award was challenged in court by the Postal Service. We won in district court and we won in circuit court. And that was Memphis, Tennessee, if anybody wants to know. The grievant is Andy Barnett. You want to look it up.
Cole, do you want another 60?
No, I mean, the only thing I would add is, I agree also, I talked about how we need to have automatic things that go in there. And then the thing, the work after that is to hold them accountable for what they're doing. Y'all know we send people in there and they behave while we're there, and then we leave and they go back to the same crap. So we have to have a process in place that holds them accountable for the stuff they're doing. And, I think everybody mentioned it earlier, file grievances, do whatever, but the accountability is the other part of it as well.
My name is Sarah Cuello. I'm from Branch 825 in Oak Brook, Illinois. And I want to know, what should the NALC stop doing, start doing, and continue doing as an organization?
Well, we should stop doing, I don't know, I'm sure there's plenty of things, but we should stop negotiating a contract that we got to hold our nose, not just negotiate, but we shouldn't ever sign a contract that we have to hold our nose about. If the contract pays clerks at any step more than us, we shouldn't do it. If the contract doesn't accomplish the goals that we set out at the start of contract negotiations, then we shouldn't do it. And there's a lot of things, and you just wonder, why are these things not a non-starter? And that would be the first thing that comes to my mind, but I'm sure there's other things. What should we start doing? We should start doing immediately, coming up with a plan for what is the future of delivery in this country. Right now, Amazon is stealing our work, and the gig economy is stealing our work. And this is non-union, this is throwaway employees, and we're sitting back and not doing anything about it. And it's a huge deal. At some point, you're going to have some type of legislation or something. They had a rally in New York City not too long ago, maybe a month ago or something. And it was all about Amazon's business practices and them trying to get them banned in the city of New York. And there's tons of legislation and there's tons of things that we should be involved in, but we haven't even started the process. The process would start with, forming a committee, getting some smart people together, getting some feedback, getting some brainstorming. Anyway, so that's what we should start doing immediately and continue. I would say that we do very good training, and I'm just talking generally as a union. I think we do very good training for our union stewards and our union reps. And I think we do very good at filing grievances. We file a ton of grievances. We got a ton of really good union reps out there, and I'd like to continue that.
I think we should stop being divided. That's what we should stop doing. This union is a group, we're too divided. We have to get on the same page. We have to row in the same direction. It makes us weaker because of our division. And that's one thing I want to do something about. That's what we have to stop doing. What we have to start doing is dealing with the backlog in the grievance procedure. What we have to start doing is taking on the interpretive cases. We have 10 national cases pending. 8 of them have been filed within the last 2 years. 6 of them, or 5 of them, been the last year. And 4 of those cases, 4 out of the 10, deal with remedies. We have to get through that to get to the other side. We have to get operations involved within the whole grievance procedure backlog. It's not just labor, because labor don't have the juice. Operations does. We have to get them involved. We have to do something about the regular regional arbitration backlog. We have to do something about the Step B backlog. That's what we got to start doing. To continue, what we have to do is continue working on what we're doing with respect to legislation. I think we have to continue the process of trying to get the reforms we need and trying to pass the bills that affect every letter carrier. And that's about it. Oh, and whatever.
You get 30 seconds if you want to, Lou.
Oh, do I?
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, we have to continue and continue building our pack, like I said before. That's what we have to do. We have to make ourselves have more influence in Congress in order to get more stuff done. And I think we can do all that.
What we need to stop doing, I'm going to echo what Lew said. We need to stop the division in our union. We got to stop the attacks in our union. We are only better when we are together. When we are divided, we are weaker, and we have a lot of things that we have to do. We have a lot of attacks that have been already put against us and other labor unions. We have got to come together, united, to fight the things that are coming and some of the things that are, already here, right? So that is definitely something we need to stop doing. What should we start doing? I agree. We need to address the DRT issue and the backlog. We have to address that. We have to work on legislation that we need. That is something that we absolutely have to start doing. The things that I talked about to where we can help the Postal Service. We have to be part of modernizing the Postal Service, right? To deal with, the mix of mail and the things that we're doing right now. We need to work on our legislation. We need to deliver for the members at collective bargaining. We need to work on improving safety. We need to get the Protect Our Letter Carriers Act done. We need to negotiate what we can for more safety for you on the street. There's a huge list of things that we need to, start doing right away. And the things we need to continue doing, I totally agree that we do a great job of training. We need to continue doing that. We need to educate our members. We need to, help however we can. I believe in building our pack, but I also believe that we need to also use our grassroots effort to get those things that we need. So there is a big list of things that we are good at that we need to continue doing. We've got to stop the division, and there are things that are immediate that need immediate attention.
Time. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Would Mike or Lou or Nicole, anybody like another minute for rebuttal to anything anybody else said? Mike, you're muted. I can see your lips moving.
Oh, they muted me, man. Yeah, I would like a rebuttal on that one.
Sure. You got 1 minute.
So I heard Nicole and Lew talk about the division in our union, and I really just want to stress the fact that I don't think we're divided at all as a union. Particularly, we're not divided because we're having an election. I really would push back against that. And I think that the problem we have where you see division, where you see inactivity, where you see infighting is because our leadership, starting from the top with the president, hasn't set a clear agenda for us as letter carriers that everyone can get a part of. And I think that's been our biggest shortcoming. And when you don't have a clear agenda that everyone can grab onto and say, here's where we're going, here's how we're going to be successful. When you do that,
seconds.
It goes down into this kind of infighting and some of this pettiness and bickering and stuff like that. But I'm all for unity, but let's talk about unity with purpose as a union.
Nicole or Lou, would you like another minute on that? Lou?
Yeah. I don't care what anybody says. This union is divided, whether you want to admit that or not. All you got to do is listen to what's going on out there. We are divided, and that's got to change. If we're all on the same page, then maybe we can call a rally, for instance, because we're going to need everybody. If we're going to get these contract goals or pursue what we're pursuing, we're going to have everybody with us. And then that means when we call for a rally, everybody shows up. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's on the same team. And we're just not right now. That's it.
All right. Nicole, do you want a minute?
Yeah. Because I believe that there is division in our union and we have to do something about it. There has to be clear communication. There has to be transparency. I agree with all that. I'm ready to do that as your president. That we need a plan. We need to talk to our members. They need to understand what it is we're trying to do, and we need to move forward together. And we have got to get past this point we are to where we can do that.
Hi, Paul Levine, Branch 343, mail carrier out of Washington, Missouri. Step 2 carrier, currently at Step D going to E. My question is for the candidates that are there tonight. How do you plan to get Table 2 carriers to support you when either one, you do not have a slate, or two, you don't have any Table 2 carriers or people on your slate that are just a carbon copy of our president, current president right now, because that slate is what has been the demise of our NALC right now with our past president or our current president, Brian Renfro. So again, what can you bring to the table that will support all of our carriers and Table 2 support, even if you don't have a slate or it's a carbon copy of what we are having right now?
All right, let's start with Lou on this one. And just a reminder, we are not taking questions right now from the audience. We're going to save that for later. So, Lou, did you want to start us off with that one?
Sure. Well, one, I'm not on a slate. I'm running by myself, but I am not a carbon copy of anybody. I am my own person. I've got my own views. When you want to talk about Table 2, and this is part of the division part of it, like we're pitted against each other, Table 1 versus Table 2. The truth is that everybody's in Table 2 that's still working, or you're at top pay. If you're at top pay in Table 1, you're at top pay in Table 2, and therefore the same thing. There's nobody left in Table 1 that's going through the steps other than OWC people that are out on injury that were frozen in their pay step. So what we're dealing with is all Table 2, and we have to do better for Table 2, and that's what I'm planning on doing. I am listening to the members. I know what your needs are. I know what you want, and we're going to try and get that for you. As far as I can tell you that I've never been part of the financial side of negotiation, but none of the other candidates have either. But Table 2 is what we got to work on, because that's all the carriers that are working. They're all Table 2. And what we got is top pay versus people going through the steps. That's what we have. And that's reality.
Well, one of the things I heard him say in the question was carbon copy. And I am not Brian. And in fact, my team is about change. We moved forward without our current president. That was a decision we made because we weren't happy with the way things were going. So I am not that carbon copy person. I am somebody that has worked very hard for our union, continues to work very hard for our union, cares about our membership. But when you say that, my team is about change. And I'm excited about the team that we have. We have a lot of experienced people. And to go back to what Lew was saying, it is about improving the life of our members, right? It's about addressing the tables that seem to, that come up and, like Lew said, try to pit us against each other. We absolutely want to work on getting a single pay table for everybody and stop all this. We are for the members, and whatever we can do to make your life better, we got to do that. But I don't agree with anybody saying that I am a carbon copy of our current president, because that is absolutely not true.
All right, so I'm going to start with my agreement with my two fellow candidates, and that especially Lew and Nicole too. I mean, they're not carbon copies of Brian Renfro. They are their own people, and they wouldn't do the same things that
he did as the president, nor would I, nor would anybody else really. So we can take that off of the table for sure. I would say that this is an issue where carriers coming in now don't feel like the union understands their plight. And so I've taken a lot of time during this campaign to really look at the numbers, and it's jarring. Table 2 carriers, people that came in as career carriers after 2013, 2014, they make a whole lot less to start. It takes way longer to get to the top, so you're making a lot less at every step. Table 1 pay chart was front loaded. You're paying that extra 3.6% into your retirement without any additional benefit. We've lost ground on health insurance, both in the percent that we pay and how far that money goes. You know, you're paying a lot more out of pocket now in health insurance. And the job has gotten more dangerous. There's more harassment. And so when you look at your union leadership and you see in your post office that at least 70, sometimes 80% of the carriers have that experience. You know, anyone that started basically in the last 15 years had that experience. And you look at the leadership of the union, and when the current executive council has 0 people that had that table 2 experience, and then you look at like Nicole has a slate of officers running for all the positions, and once again, none of them ever had that table 2 experience, and you're like, man, there must be some disconnect here between our experience as letter carriers and the leadership of the union. And I think that's the issue, and that's an issue I've talked about and I want to fight against.
Michael Smith, Branch 916. This is a 4-part question. What are your thoughts on the way Brian Renfro handled the last contract negotiations? How do you feel about his handling of the current negotiations? Would you do anything differently if you were in charge of the current negotiations? And for future negotiations, would you commit to telling the members the Postal Service's best offer at the end of the 60-day mediation period? And if there is no offer, would you commit to going directly to arbitration? Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you for one from Mike. Lew, I'll give you the first shot at this.
All right. I think that the last negotiation was not handled correctly. I'm not going to. We waited way too long, and we promised way too much, and delivered way too little. And that's what happened in the last round of negotiations. This round of negotiations was so far more transparent. We are to the point of mediation's over. We need to select an interest arbitrator and get to putting a case on. Now, I believe when you put a case on, we have to have letter carriers. We have to let them vent. We have to have panels that go and testify about the hot, the heat, the cold, the danger, the workroom floor environment, the uniforms, the pitiful situation you have with uniforms, how much they cost versus how much you get, all those things and more. We have to have letter carriers, a panel about why the job's more mentally and physically difficult than it was, say, 10 years ago. We have to let an arbitrator feel what's going on within the Postal Service. And that's what we got to do with this current thing. And in the future, yes, I'll share what their last best offer is. If you think that, I won't share every detail of every negotiation thing. I mean, I want to be transparent, but I don't like to play poker and show somebody my hand before I make a bet, you know, and say, oh, here's my hand. I'll bet you $1. You know, you don't do that. There's some things that you got to hold to the vest, and that's just the way that is. But I would be transparent in the
15
future.
seconds.
And in the future, I would go to interest arbitration right after mediation. You have to make a plan for that. There's no sense in holding back and waiting for a bus that might not even be coming.
So the last one, Brian took too long. I don't think it was handled well. It took way too long to get to that negotiated agreement. And that, again, was not how I would have handled that, right? This one, I agree, it's been better with the communication. We are getting ready to go into arbitration. I agree that we should be fighting for all those things. The hard work that letter carriers do, that you work outside, the comparability with other people that do work like us, all the safety issues, all the dangers of the job, all those things should be, would be what we would be conveying as, our arguments. And, we have, we get experts to help us with that argument as well. Future, absolutely. More transparency. And like I said, I think we had it this time. I would continue to work on that. It is a fine line between when you're trying to negotiate something, sharing, because you definitely want to do that. And I would share everything that I absolutely could that would not harm you, right? I'm not going to share something that would put us in a bad spot or something that would put us behind, the 8 ball of trying to get something for our members. But absolutely, I am absolutely about communication and transparency. I am about moving forward in the process as expeditiously as we can, as
15 seconds.
So that we can get the best possible results. Since I have 15 seconds. Thanks, Chris.
All right, thank you for that, Nicole. Up next is Mike, and if either one of the candidates at the end want to have a rebuttal, just shake it, wave your hand around, and I'll call on you for a 1-minute rebuttal. Go ahead, Mike.
Man, I thought we had 7 seconds left, but then you took it up, Chris. Would I do it differently? I would start there because I would absolutely do this thing way different than the way we do it right now. And I hated the way we conducted contract negotiations at the expiration of the 2023 contract. I think that what needs to be transparent and what we still didn't have this time around is a transparency on 2 things. One, what is the Postal Service commitment to working together with us during the 90-day legally mandated period to solve the problems? So the last 2 contracts, we've had this ridiculous task force to study the uniform program, and it hasn't worked at all. And so with that, what is the Postal Service commitment on uniforms? How many meetings are we going to have? We're going to schedule it Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. How many hours? How many people are going to be there? What are we going to look at? I want something concrete. And if they're not making the commitment that they should be making, I'm telling on them. That's what transparency is. I'm going back to the members, and I'm going to media, and I'm going to the Congress, and I'm saying, look, these people are not taking this seriously. We got a broken grievance process. We got a uniform program that doesn't work. We need to do something about that. And what really pissed me off about the last contract negotiations, it wasn't the form of them. It wasn't it took too long or whatever. It was that we didn't accomplish our goals. And we had a great opportunity after the pandemic to finally get back to where this job is a respectable middle-class job like it used to be. And since January 10th of 2013, it hasn't been. And we had that opportunity last time around. And instead, we end up with a contract that pays clerks more than us, that keeps the CCA classification, that didn't make any improvements whatsoever, that doesn't make us comparable to UPS drivers who got a great contract in the summer of 2023. So I hated all of that. And I'll leave it right there.
Hi, guys. This is Omaira Acevedo from Branch 181, Austin, Texas. My question for the candidates is the following. The NALC has been an association that represents a wide variety of carriers with different backgrounds. With that being said, would you, as the future president of NALC, would be advocating the translation of not just the national agreement, but also all union literature, including the post office manuals, handbooks, all the works, for the letter carriers that have English as their second language?
Absolutely. That is something that we should definitely do. I believe in, our membership is so diverse, and it really is, and it's such a strength of ours. And it's a strength that we harness a lot, and we need to make, changes to where we are recognizing our diversity and doing more things in that space. And absolutely, this would be something we should absolutely do.
Yeah, well, Mayra, I love that question. And people assume that it's, los carreteros que hablan español en Puerto Rico and todo este país, pero it's not just the people that speak Spanish. You have, like, I was in a post office in San Francisco, and a lot of them were, they spoke Cantonese, Chinese descent. You have a lot of carriers that are deaf that use sign language to communicate in a lot of different ways. And I think that we could probably do more in translation and making things available and just making people feel, everyone feel part of the union. So I don't know what more to say on that.
Lew?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I'm just thinking about this. I don't know why you couldn't set up our website to where the first thing you did is pick what language you wanted to be in. I mean, they do that on airplanes. They do it on, anything you do anymore. I would imagine, and I'm no tech guy, but I bet you can set that up. And that would be a great idea to do, not just to one language, but to several.
Donald Butler, Concord, New Hampshire, Branch 76. My question is, if elected, what are your plans for arbitration if we do not have a new contract by then?
Yeah, so the question is, what would be the plan if I'm elected to president? We go to arbitration. I'm gonna be laser focused on the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970 and the law. The Postal Service has tried to cry broke in previous arbitrations, and they've been told that the statute is the statute. We went out on strike in 1970 to win that language, which is in the Postal Reorganization Act of 1970. And I'm going to be focused on that and say, look, are wages of letter carriers comparable right now to similar levels of work in the private sector of the economy of the United States? And we're going to spend a lot of time with a comparison between a letter carrier and a UPS driver. I'm not talking about the people that sort the packages and load the trucks at UPS. I'm talking about the UPS driver and what they make and what their job entails. We're on our feet all day. Well, you start with the similarities, right? We're national delivery companies. We wear uniforms. We drive trucks, that kind of thing. Our pay is not nowhere near what their pay is. They're making $49 an hour after 4 years to the top, and 100% of their health insurance paid and uniforms just provided to them without this ridiculous process. And so when we have a comparison, I don't see how we compare any less than the work that UPS drivers do. You look at it, you say, okay, they are out there on the street, but we're on our feet all day. A lot of times they're sitting in the truck. We're facing a lot more dangers now than ever before. We're out there in the heat longer. We're out there in the dark. We have later starting times now, and we have more dangers just by being out in every single community in America. There's a target and there's a responsibility. You can be brought up on federal charges under the U.S. code for being a letter carrier. UPS driver doesn't have to deal with that. They don't have to deal with a lot of the things that we deal with. And so why would we get paid any less if the law and the standard?
If the election comes around and I'm president, you got to see where we are first in the process. If there's an arbitrator that still needs to be picked, we will expeditiously find the best arbitrator that we can to go forward with that. We'll put on, obviously the best case possible. We have lots of experts. We'll use letter carriers. And there are things that we have that we would like to get in an arbitration hearing and in any future collective bargaining rounds. I'd like to go towards a single table pay chart with a higher starting wage and a higher ending wage with shorter time to get through it, and full colas at every step. I think we should look at moving towards eliminating the non-career workforce, which has been our goal for a long time, and we need to do that. I think we should look at ending all forced overtime. If the contract, if it's in violation of the contract, you should be able to go home like we have for other provisions in the contract. I think we need to address the uniform allowance. I think that it needs to be significantly increased. And at the end of it, then of course it would also go to where the Postal Service is taking it over automatically to where, they're just giving you a uniform. That's what it should be. I think we need to look at what we can do to reverse the trend on the cost for health insurance. I think that we should Okay, I think we should improve anything we can to protect letter carriers on the street.
The current contract, of course, you're going to have to pick an arbitrator if that hadn't already been done. But you got to pronto get ready to go to hearing, and you got to, like I said before, you need panels of letter carriers to explain to an arbitrator to make that arbitrator taste what you taste with all this stuff, with with the starting wage and how that is, and the the heat and the cold and the difficulty of the job and the danger of the job and several other things. But that's the kind of case we got to put on. What Mike was talking about, that's our case for comparability. The Postal Service got another case. They're going to try and compare us to everything, including pizza delivery people. That's what they've done in the past. So we got to be prepared for that sort of thing. And we do have experts, and we'll put on the expert testimony. But where the rubber meets the road is when letter carriers talk about their lives and talk about the environment. That's another one. All those things we're going to have to put in bring to light, bring everything to life in front of this arbitrator. And that's what I would want to do currently.
Yeah, I got some rebuttal. I don't have confidence in either Nicole or Lew to get us the contract we deserve. And I'll tell you why. And I'm listening, and I've seen some of the stuff that Lew has put out, and I'm listening to Nicole here talk about getting the full COLA, eliminating the non-career classification, doing something about mandatory overtime, the uniform program, health insurance costs, all of that in the last contract. We didn't make no advancements on any of that stuff in the last contract. And where was Nicole and where was Lew at saying we can do better? We as letter carriers need to fight for a better contract. We can actually do better in the interest arbitration process because we have that comparability standard. And that's what I would say about that.
Nicole or Lew, do you guys want a rebuttal?
Absolutely, because I don't agree. Number one, I didn't negotiate that contract. I was not crazy about that contract. And I think we could have done better. Absolutely. So, to answer that, I don't agree with Mike's assessment of what he is saying. I absolutely can do the job of president. I can absolutely fight for letter carriers. I can absolutely go to collective bargaining with the things that we want to achieve. I did not negotiate the last contract. Neither did Mike or Lew.
Lew, rebuttal?
Yeah, for the last contract, I was not part of the negotiations in any way. I was retired, so I was never part of that negotiations. I would like to say, where was Mike? He was part of that negotiations, or at least he served on some bargaining committee for that thing. And I know he's talked a lot, but he hadn't really done anything toward change. And yes, we didn't get anywhere with all those things in the last contract, but this is a new contract. And we'll get what we can get out of this contract, and we'll bargain a new contract. That's what we've done for years and years. And we always try and do better for letter carriers. But, I have confidence in myself. I know what I can do, and I know what I'm going to do. And I hope that folks out there can see that.
Hi, my name's Donald Stonecipher. I'm from Branch 576 Phoenix by way of Branch 1100 Whittier, and also by way of Branch 1100 Anaheim, and I'm proud of those roots. I was wondering if the candidates would support a constitutional amendment that would require just cause or majority support from the Executive Council for the President to reassign duties of other members of the Executive Council, and also for firing MBAs or RAAs. I think it's hypocritical of the council not to support time limits on appointing MBAs, while also not caring on the back end how firing them affects their personal lives. So, thank you.
All right, let's hear from Nicole first.
So a constitutional amendment so some of these items were actually brought up at the convention in Los Angeles. And the delegates at the convention actually voted them down. So, some of the things that we're talking about with the time limits for appointing somebody, obviously, as president, I will do that as quickly as possible. I don't think it should have taken as long as it did. I don't think we need a constitutional amendment to put a time frame on that. There could be something, that in that decision process to where that time limit might actually not be an advantage, right? The point is you need to be willing to make those decisions and not let them take that long. And I promise you, I will do that, right? I will pledge to you that that will happen. Reassigning duties. There are a lot of officers at headquarters that do different kinds of duties. Depending on, the needs, sometimes they change around. I don't necessarily think that we need a constitutional amendment for the duties of officers to be shifted from one another. I think that might limit us. If the idea is to bring some of those things to the council, I totally agree things should be brought to the council. In the last 4 years, we haven't had communication. We haven't had transparency. There are things that should have been brought to the council that weren't.
15 seconds.
If you have that communication and transparency with the council, I don't know that the constitutional amendment would be necessary. Thanks.
Yes, I do not support a constitutional amendment that requires the just cause be proven before somebody goes back to the route. If it's some regional administrative assistant, for instance, somebody like that. Look, if somebody's not doing what they're supposed to do, then you give them opportunity, but eventually you got to do something with that and bring somebody in who's going to work better for the members. And I don't think that you need a constitutional amendment to make those decisions. As far as reassignment of duties, I don't see, who knows who the members are going to elect for all these positions. Whoever that is, I'm going to work with. And I'm going to find how I can best use you from your position. Just because you're a director of safety and health, for instance, doesn't mean you don't know something about the grievance procedure. And maybe you're really good at that. And maybe that would be something that we could assign you. Like, for instance, we have the mutual benefits director, Jim Yates. He does a lot of the accounting stuff with national bargaining. He's really good at that. If he went to a different position, I would reassign his duties to keep him doing that because he's really good at it. And that's what we should be doing, is using everybody in the best way possible for members. So reassignment of duties is different than taking somebody's duties away. Because I think that's what he's getting at. I wouldn't want to strip anybody, but if somebody's better at something than you, I'm going to use that person for that purpose and use you for what you're really good at. And that's what I would do.
I love that I got 4 minutes for this one because I agree with everything Lew just said. So ditto on all of that. And I got some things I want to add here. So the whole concept of just cause, it's all wrong to me. We are letter carriers. We're serving temporarily in a position with the union, and we're just letter carriers. And so if the decision maker, the president, whoever, feels that the union would be better served if somebody else was in that position, assuming that the Constitution allowed for that type of change, then I would want that person to have that authority. It's not punishment. You don't need to have a just cause standard. You're not punishing anyone. That person goes back to being the letter carrier that they always were. And I don't look at it like that at all. Our employees, people that are not letter carriers, they have a union, different unions that represent them. And we do have to have just cause and those type of things if we're taking any type of action against someone who's an employee. But a letter carrier, we're here to serve our fellow letter carriers, and I would leave it at that. One thing I would change, though, is the charges process. The charges is something in Article 10 of the Constitution that allows for every member to have input if they think an officer of the union is doing something wrong. And there's two things that bring forth the charge. You have an allegation that person, the officer of the union, violated the Constitution or that they were derelict in their duties. And we've been very negligent as a leadership body of the union where we haven't taken people's charges seriously. The most clearest example was when Brother Michael Rivera brought forth his charges And he said that President Renfro violated the Constitution because when you agreed to a stipulated agreement, that agreement should have been put to a vote by the membership. And we didn't appoint an investigator and follow the Article 10
15
process.
seconds.
And I promise you, if I'm the president, I'm going to make sure that we follow the Constitution and the Article 10 process. We don't have to change the language. It's already in there, but we have to make sure that we follow it. And we didn't follow it in the case of Michael Rivera's charges. And that was a derelict of our duty as a...
The issues that we're talking about, they didn't exist prior to the last 4 years. We didn't have these problems before Brian became president. That's because we communicated and we worked together. And, that's one of the reasons that is one of the reasons why I'm running. And I just wanted to put that out there too.
Devin Joseph, Branch 984, St. Charles, Missouri. I had a question regarding priorities for the candidates. I'd like you to rank what you believe would be most important to least important in 3 different things. Getting rid of diet colas, getting to top step faster, and a bigger general wage increase. Which do you believe is most important, and how would you go about it in contract negotiations? Thank you.
All right, so I don't know if those 3 would be like my 3 things, but if those were the only 3 things I had to choose from, I would take the general increase first. I think it has the most impact. We have a situation now where only about 25% of our workforce is at the top step. Everybody else is at, some other step. And that's because there's so much turnover and so many people quit the job. And so traditionally, we've always wanted that high general wage increase because that ups your top pay, and then into retirement you get the top 3, the high 3, the average of the high 3, and it has a more lasting impact on your wages throughout your life. Now that's not as much the case, but it's still the case that a lot of our people are going to have this job for a long time and are hopefully going to get into retirement. And so that general wage increase is very impactful. The second thing I would put would be getting to the top step faster. I think that that's something that you get when you get more of your money up front. So to me, top step is the pay. That's the pay for a letter carrier. The amount of time that it takes me to get to the pay for a letter carrier is the time that the company is cheating me out of my money. That's the way I look at it. So I want to get to that point quicker so that I can invest my money and I can do things with my money and put that money in my pocket because I'm doing the job of a letter carrier, and the job of a letter carrier pays this amount. And then last, I would put the whole Diet Cola thing. It's not that significant to me. It is impactful. I get it. I would rather, have a full COLA versus the proportional COLA, but you can negotiate general wage increases and other things that negate the effect of the COLAs anyway. And I think there's ways around there where that's not as impactful.
Yeah, I would rank them based on basically what would be the best outcome for our members. And some of what was said already, the general wage increases are important because that has to do with your salary at all of your steps, and it affects your top pay, right? Getting there faster, I think is probably the second. And I do agree with the COLA. There are other things that we can do that in the end work better towards getting that pay higher. You can kind of work around those kinds of things to actually do something. So I agree that it would be general wage increases because that's across the board, and that has to do with your pay all the way through to your top step, what your retirement's based on. Faster would be number 2, and the COLA would be number 3 for me. Just because we can do, again, other things to address that.
For these particular 1, 2, 3s, my number 1 is a shorter time to get to top step. Because I think that our pay scale is light on the front end and heavier on the back end. And the only way to correct that whole thing is to shorten the time it takes to get to the top. And I would propose to do it in a different way, maybe not just eliminate like last time we eliminated step A. I would want to reduce the amount of weeks to get to each step. Right now it's 46 weeks all the way up the board, but I would want to reduce how many weeks it takes, because that would take care of helping everybody at every step on the way up to full pay. So that's my number one. My number two is full COLAs. I believe in COLAs. I believe that's why the job in table one pays what it pays, or, that's a big part of it. I think we've lost ground since we've had proportionate COLAs, or you call it diet COLA, or whatever you want to call it. But if somebody takes a good look at how much money Top Step gets each contract through COLA adjustments, it's a significant amount of money. And the lower end of the stick gets shorted on that. And I think that we have to have that. That's my number two. General wage increase is number three in my book. Not that it's not important, but you want to get a great general wage increase. What you're going to get from an arbitrator, we'll see. But everybody gets that from top pay down to bottom pay. And I think we ought to focus this contract on the lower end of the pay scale.
All right. Do any of the candidates have rebuttals?
I just had a quick rebuttal on that. Look, the reason why the general wage increase is significant is because it compounds. You get a increase in 2026 that's now built into your salary, and you can grow on that in 2027, 2028, 2029. I think the general wage increase is very significant.
Nicole, did you have a rebuttal?
No, I'd just like to add, ranking things. If I can do all three of them at the same time, of course, but I realized the ranking was it. That's real important too. The career, the table, all those kinds of things. That's it.
Go ahead, Lew. Do you have a rebuttal?
Lew's got a rebuttal.
Just real quick. I would just want to point out that COLAs, general wage increases build, but so do COLAs. They build equally. That general wage increase. If you got a $1,000 COLA this year, then that's gonna be rolled into your retirement, and that's gonna be every year you're gonna get that. That's all.
What is your plan for the national headquarters to combat management? We'll start with Lew on that one.
The national headquarters to combat management.
Yes.
Well, first, like I said before, you got to get operations in the room. Right now, we just deal with labor, best I know. And operations has got to be part of it, because a typical postmaster doesn't answer to labor. Labor can tell that postmaster whatever they want. But that postmaster don't listen to labor, they listen to operations. That's the chain they work for. The postmaster answers to the POOM, who answers to the district manager, who answers to the vice president. And that's the system that we have. And they have got to be brought in as part of this whole thing if you're going to get somewhere. So that's one change I would like to make at national.
All right, Mike. You there, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. Can you hear me? Start the clock.
Yes.
Go ahead, start the clock.
All right, we can start it now. All right.
No, I was saying you could have started it.
It's a 20-second penalty. Don't worry, it's in my head.
I think dealing with management, we have to get some accountability on that side of the table. There is zero accountability right now. Everyone's in the position just to satisfy the person above them. There's absolutely no accountability in the grievance procedure. There's no accountability in the actions that they take, the decisions that they take, the wastefulness. I really think that we as a union have to address this, because Postal Service is literally mismanaging their way, or our way, out of a future and a livelihood. I mean, it's really, really bad out there. And I think that you can quantify some of the waste, and you can quantify some of the decision making that has really been harmful. And I think you can, get some leverage to negotiate a better grievance procedure, better accountability, better enforcement, and different things like that can actually work if we attack management. And it's kind of traditionally we've kind of shied away from attacking management because when you attack them in the public eye, it can backfire on us. It's like, oh, well, the Postal Service is poorly managed. Let's privatize the joint. Let's, turn it over to the Commerce Department or whatever. And so there's a fine line you got to walk there. But I think it's to the point now where something's got to be done. It's completely out of control. I mean, I can't stress it enough. There is zero accountability, and there's way too many of them. And it's just a problem. Their structure is all bad. The Postmaster General doesn't seem to know what the hell's going on in his own organization. The operations people make their own decisions. The
15
labor
seconds.
people make their own decisions. The other thing I guess I thought Lew would bring up is, filing national grievances and forcing in adherence to the national contract that we do negotiate with the Postal Service. Thanks.
All right, and Nicole?
You're muted, Nicole.
Oh, sorry.
You're good now.
Okay. Forget what I just said because, he couldn't hear it. It's important to have leaders that can effectively, communicate with management. That's important. And you got to make it to where you hit them to where, it's in the financial pocket for them to come around to some of the things that make sense to do. I mean, there's all the things that we, of course, can do with filing grievances and all that kind of stuff. It comes, even when it comes down to like our dispute resolution process, right? You got to get them to the point to where it's not financially advantageous for them to stall and do things like that. So you've got to get things in place to where the decisions they're making, they're doing it because they're in the corner and that's the best way to get out of it, right? So there is the whole national grievance. There's definitely effective communications. They don't want an efficient grievance procedure. We have to make them want it. We've got to file that grievance. And again, we've got to put the things in place to make it to where it forces them to do things. For example, right now, if when it comes to settlements that aren't precedent setting, right? They'll push things off because they want to get something that's not precedent setting. Well, you put some some rules in there to where that's not the case. It incentivizes them to settle it at an earlier step. So there are definitely things that we can do to make management come and to the table and do what they have agreed to do.
15 seconds.
Mike, Lew, do you have a rebuttal to that?
I do. Can I go?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So, like I say, we got to get operations in on the game. But what we really have to do is convince management that I don't think we need a new grievance procedure. I think our grievance procedure isn't the problem. I think the problem is management wanting to stop our grievance procedure. They're just standing in the way. They're intentionally destroying our grievance procedure and then calling it broke. And I think that's wrong. And what we have to do is talk about compliance. We have non-compliance now, which causes escalating remedies, which I'm a big fan of. And that's the only way you can get compliance. But if you could educate them and get them to understand the kind of liability situations they're creating by doing exactly what they're doing, installing this grievance procedure, I think maybe we could get somewhere.
Mike, do you have anything?
Yeah, I was kicked out for a couple of minutes, but I caught the last part of what Lew said. I disagree. I don't disagree strongly, but I do think that the grievance procedure that we have in play right now can be modernized and improved upon, and it would help. One, you have this big backlog right now, and I don't know exactly how we're going to fix the backlog at the same time that we are handling current grievances unless you have a better grievance process going forward. So I think that that's one part of it. The other part of it is just the modern era. I don't think that back in 1998 or whenever, when the dispute resolution process was formulated, you didn't have Zoom meetings. You didn't have certain certain things that you have now. And I think that a lot of the lawyering and the 1,000-page case files and all that stuff, I think we could do something about that and make it more efficient and get resolution for the carrier quicker, which would be an improvement, in my opinion.
All right, now I'm going to send it over to Margot, who has a question.
To rebuttal on that, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Nicole. Did you not get? Yes.
I was just going to add, you got to, keep in mind that the Postal Service has never taken the initiative to bolster its finances. We've always had to take the lead on that, and I have a list of things that we can do to address that issue, that they don't take that initiative, and doing so, that has a direct effect on a lot of the things that we want to accomplish with the Postal Service and our agenda. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
All right, Margot.
All right, my question, we're shaking it up a little bit. So I wanted to express that many communities like mine in Des Moines, Iowa, are experiencing rapid expansion, especially through the suburbs. And even though those routes are urban by any definition of the word, they usually end up becoming rural routes. So what's going on there? Has the NALC been grieving this or doing something about this? And what do we think about combining the rural and city craft and unions? Let's call on Nicole first.
I absolutely think we need to reopen the conversation with the rural carriers and discuss a friendly merger with the rural carriers. We both do outside work. I think we would be better together. I think that would be a great thing for both of our crafts. And we're, as far as the territory and all that, I know we even have an interpretive issue right now about collection boxes that they're moving on territory as well. So we're constantly monitoring that. But the end of your question, should we talk to them? Absolutely, we should. We should pick up that conversation and talk to the rural carriers about a friendly merger.
Excellent. Let's talk to Lew.
Yeah, I agree. As far as a merger would go, merging with the rural carriers would be a smart idea if they were willing. But as far as the territory goes, when we have expansion, they are assigning most territory to rural carriers where they have a choice. And there's a whole pocket, there's a whole pile of grievances about city-rural disputes that's been sitting there that I worked on a long time ago. That has got to move, at some point. But the thing is, what we're doing out for real in the street is they'll assign new territory to rural routes, and then they can't hire rural carriers, and they'll assign CCAs to do rural territory. That happens, I know, in my city all the time, every day, and has been for a long time. And the Postal Service cries that that's the only way they could get the mail delivered. And you talk about moving territory to city. If you're going to have city carriers delivered, then make it city territory. And so far that falls on deaf ears, but I'd like to do something with that.
All right, let's hear from Mike Caref.
Yeah, I think that this question, there's got to be something we can do with the law that allows the Postal Service to assign delivery, because as long as there's somebody else out there that is going to do it cheaper, the Postal Service is going to have an incentive. I mean, we always want to negotiate the best contract for us, and we don't want that to result in the work going to somebody else. And you're absolutely right, Margot, that, all these real cities out here have rural delivery. And I don't know, to me, having a city letter carrier in uniform in a community is valuable. That person is out there, that person's looking out for the elderly, they're looking out for the kids. They wear the uniform, there's accountability, there's responsibility there. I think that there's a way to look at the law and say, if these factors are in play, if you live in a city, you're going to receive city delivery by a city letter carrier. And I think that would be a step forward if we could try to get to that point, because otherwise it's always going to be a race to the bottom. And the Postal Service, I mean, not just rural carriers, they want a highway delivery contract out, gig economy, it's going to keep going in that direction unless you have a guarantee that work and that delivery is going to be done by a city letter carrier. As far as merger with the rural letter carrier union, I don't really have a lot of knowledge of that. In theory, it sounds like a good idea. I'm sure that we're expending resources in the ways that they're expending resources, and they're kind of duplicative, and you can kind of do that maybe better if we merge together. But that would take a lot of legwork and meetings and organizing and figure that out. We would still have separate contracts, so it wouldn't merge the contracts per se. So I don't know. I don't know about that, but it'd be something I would definitely explore if that other union was interested.
All right, excellent. Do any of the candidates have a rebuttal? All right, hearing none, I'm going to pass it over to my co-host, Greg.
All right. So the NALC seems to be in the business of helping to save the post office. We see it through the political fund, and we've seen Brian have ideas, or the executive council have ideas on moving the money around and stuff like that. I guess the question is, with all that being said, that we help try to save them, why is there still such hostility towards the NALC, the APWU? I know you guys can't speak for that, but with us trying to save them, why is there so much hostility, and how can you guys, as president, change that? I'll call on Mike first.
Yeah, I love that question, man. It's
Oh, thanks. I wrote it.
Yeah, it's maddening to me, even in and Lou alluded to some of these things earlier when you talk about the grievance procedure, right? And I've had that experience so many times where I'll go to the Postal Service and I'll say, look, I'm going to be able to save you some money here. We're going to resolve this issue. You're going to have to pay something anyway. So I'm going to offer you this amount, which is going to be less than you'll end up paying eventually. And it's going to build some goodwill, and we'll be able to work together, and we move on to the next thing. And then next time, just don't do it that way again. And then we won't have a grievance, and we won't have this issue. And, it all makes sense, and it's all logical. And they're just the party of no right now. It's like no, 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 at the local level, at the national level, and everything. And so I know that. And it's not just the modern era. That's not something that Brian Renfro invented or Fred Rolando invented. If you go back and read the book, Mailman USA was about President Doherty way back in like the 30s and the 40s. They were doing it then. They were trying to make sure that the Postal Service, doesn't do stupid stuff. And that's the Postal Service we've always dealt with. And they unfortunately hold the keys to a lot of our livelihood. And so it is important that we kind of bring them along. I want to know what kind of influence we can have first with the Postmaster General, which I think is not going to be much, because the Postmaster General is a CEO type, and I'm not sure we're going to make any headway with him. But then the Board of Governors, I'd like to see if we can make some headway, breaking it down to them, showing that this is not productive, this type of relationship. Letter carriers can build the Postal Service. Letter carriers can make the Postal Service look good and be the delivery mechanism for America and provide that service. The people that are in our way is postal management. And, try to have that conversation with them. And if that doesn't work, then I think if that doesn't work, then I think you got to go to Congress, and you got to go to the media. You got to do something to shake this thing up, because right now it's really on a bad course.
Let's go to Nicole next on that.
Yeah, so the question's a great question. Nobody's in charge over there. That's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is it's all short-term vision, right? So I mentioned it earlier that, for whatever reason, they don't take the initiative to do things to help themselves, right? So that's part of the problem too. And we have to address that, right? And we have addressed that. And unfortunately, we'll have to continue addressing that because of, the way they operate over there. But, the bottom line is, it's our company, and we have to take charge, and we have a plan to do that when we get elected.
You have more time, Nicole, unless you want to pass it over to Lou.
Oh, heck, I figured I was right at my two minutes. No,
you're right at a minute. We can pass it to Lou if you want.
Look, I can add to it because,
Sure.
Again, the short-sightedness on that side is part of the problem, right? And we've always had to, and it's true, we've always had to go to them with solutions to the problems, right? They that's why we have to do it. It's not only to keep them, viable, but it's to help us get the things that we want, right? The things that we want in collective bargaining. We have to lead on legislation. We have to do all those things to get the billions of dollars that we can put into the Postal Service to help. All of those things, again, it's
10
because
seconds.
nobody's doing it over there and no one is in charge.
All right, Lou, a lot of pressure here. They both thought it was a great question. So what's your thoughts on the question and what's the answer?
The question's fine. My answer is like this. We have no choice but to save the Postal Service from themselves, which that's always been true. They're always coming up with some harebrained thing and trying to go in the wrong direction. And we have to try and we have no choice but to save the Postal Service from themselves because it's our company. It's not their company. It's everybody's company. And that's what we need to do. As far as the hostility goes, we've always had an adversarial relationship. I mean, that's just the way it is when you're talking about management versus the union. That's just the way it is. However, it doesn't have to be hostile like this. It doesn't have to be a no-go, no start, no nothing. I agree that nobody over there is really in charge, or not so much, but the people who are in charge don't want to make any decision. They want to be obstructionists rather than visionists. And that's what we need to do, is get them to start looking and get them to chase the right things. And I think you have to start with the Postmaster General and work your way down. That's how you have to do it, because you can't start from the bottom up. The bottom, they don't know anything. They don't care about nothing. And the only reason they don't care about nothing is because nobody's telling them to. If you had the right person telling local management that they to care about ABC, to care about compliance, to care about the environment, the workroom floor environment, if you had the right people doing that, they would all of a sudden care and everything would start to move. But it starts at the top and you have to work your way backwards, the way I see it with the present makeup that we're dealing with.
Mike or Nicole, did you have anything else to add to that?
I was just going to say, I think the word you were looking for, Lou, was visionaries, not visionists.
Fair enough.
Exactly. Yeah, like I said, it's on us, and it always has been, and it continues to be, and we'll do that.
All right, I'm going to pass it over to my good friend James Capone.
All right, everybody. So how do you plan on dealing with the interpretive decisions that the United States Postal Service is filing and how they're causing a backlog while also not sitting on these to get them situated? Nicole, you first.
Okay, so, we have several interpretive issues pending right now. I think you're referring to the grievances. So there's the one that has to do with the interpretive issue the Postal Service raised about if a decision isn't heard in 14 days at step B, that it's untimely. They've taken that position. We obviously disagree with that position, especially when you consider that, they aren't activating backups to get those decisions done. The caseload that is being held, if that's what you're talking about, isn't necessarily about that issue, right? It's the other interpretive step issue that most of the cases that are being held for an interpretive issue are, and that is the one where the Postal Service has filed that interpretive issue that a remedy should not include payments to stewards, the union, or a charity, right? There are cases that are being held for that, but not necessarily for the 14-day. It's a matter of getting those looked at and resolved if possible, or going forward with them, because obviously, it's important to help with the process, the DRT process that we have, but the 14-day has not caused any holding. It's the other issue that has, and absolutely, we need to get those moving and taken care of so that we can free all that up.
All right, Lou.
Yeah, the interpretive disputes, there's 10 of them. And 3 of them, 2 of them are older cases. and 3 of them are 2 years old, and the rest of the 5 are been filed within a year. As I said before, 4 of them have something to do with remedies. And one of them's about a case in Kentucky where management agreed to a remedy and then they didn't comply, and the thing's gotten so out of hand, management, instead of paying it or doing something with it, they take it interpretive. There's a remedy case about Article 8.5.f, remedies for that. When they violate that section, is it appropriate? Are we entitled to a remedy outside of just getting paid? The one about the steward pay and the payment to the branch, that case, there's 2,700 grievances pending held for that. That's just the regional level. That doesn't have nothing to do with Step B. The other one, there's an interpretive dispute about a 1767 and remedies that comes from Mike's region, that whole interpretive dispute. The thing is, we got to get an interpretive arbitrator. We got to get dates, and we got to start scheduling cases. That's the only way you're going to get interpretive issues solved. And if we have to take them oldest to newest, that is so be it. But what we used to do is we'd pick the cases that were, we wouldn't always pick the oldest case. We'd pick the case that we need an answer to. We need an answer to all these cases. And since I left in 2022, we've only heard one national case, one. And that's just not acceptable. So national arbitrator gives us 2 dates a month. You bargain for how many dates they're going to accept. You get your date 6 months out,
15 seconds.
And you schedule some cases. And that's how you do it. And that's how you get that moving. And I know how to do that. I've done it before, and I will take care of doing that.
All right, Mike.
I agree with Lew, and he already offered to help me out if I should win as the president. So I appreciate that. And I think he's absolutely right. You got to get in there and get those things resolved. No matter how it falls. Look, you're not going to win them all, but not getting it resolved is what really hurts us. And so I would say for sure we mishandled. Well, I was gonna add in that we could also look at negotiating language like the APWU has, which allows, instead of just taking the national grievances in order, it allows either side to prioritize in the Article 15 language, so you could bump something up and put it at the top of the line or whatever. That's something we can look at. But the HIP grievance, I would say a huge mistake on our part. I think we had a lot of leverage because the Postal Service was like, if you remember in 2023, we filed all those HIP grievances. They were falsifying our reports, all of us active carriers. They were, saying that we had taken certain trainings that we didn't take, that they were providing us certain information about the heat and how to protect ourselves, that we weren't actually getting that training. And Eugene Gates died on someone's front lawn out there in Dallas, Texas. And so we had leverage to take that issue, and the Postal Service is running around telling the media, oh no, all of our letter carriers, they get heat illness prevention program. Well, though we weren't actually getting the damn training. And so to allow the Postal Service to put that issue on hold and we couldn't process grievances, when we did that, we lost all of our leverage. And we're doing the same thing now with the most recent dispute, which is on remedies. I don't believe that you can hold a grievance. And it's a lawyer kind of thing looking at the Article 15 language, but the way I read it, you don't have the right to hold our grievance because you don't like the remedy. The issue itself is not in dispute. The reason why the person filed the grievance is not in dispute. The Postal Service wants to hold the entire grievance for the remedy. I say, no, we're going to arbitrate that thing.
All right, Nicole, do you have a rebuttal? Or
No,
Lew?
No, not necessarily rebuttal. I'll reiterate again. It's important to get those cases moving and heard. Absolutely.
I got something. Yeah, I just want to say that we don't always take the oldest case first. We hadn't done that. Now I'm just saying the Postal Service might try and insist on that. If you look at the oldest case we have, it was filed in April of 2007. So we've heard a whole lot of cases that were filed after that. And that's what we really should be doing, is prioritizing what we need to have heard with the Postal Service, knowing that their liability is what it is in those cases. They should have enough sense to do that. If they don't, fine. We'll get to we'll in short order get to that, because we're going to schedule these cases and we're going to get them heard or resolved.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
I would just say I don't have the language in front of me, but I'm pretty confident, and we've been told by President Renfro and Executive Vice President Paul Barner that there is language in Article 15 that says that, that's the default, that it has to go in order. And therefore, you got to either try to change the language or you have mutual agreement. And probably in the past, we've had mutual agreement to leapfrog and put something forward that both parties agree to put forward. But right now, like I said earlier, they're the party of no. So if we don't have it in black and white in the contract, we're not getting any type of agreement or any type of accommodation from them right now.
All right, I'm going to throw it over to my co-host on the roundtable, Greg.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I was just laughing at the chat. Switching it up a little. I've been told that the NALC is a $1 billion organization, but a lot of the members, and I probably just broke news to 325 of them, don't know that. One, how do you feel about running a $1 billion organization? Because you will be the top of that. And what does the everyday rank and file member get out of being a member of a $1 billion organization? I'll start with Lew on that one.
How do I feel about it? I feel okay about it. I mean, I know it's a $1 billion organization. There's a lot of different facets of that. And there's a lot of people that you're going to have around you, experts and all that kind of thing. But what does the rank and file get out of it? Well, here's what I want to make sure they get is the best representation possible. We're not going to scrimp because we're a $1 billion organization. We're not going to scrimp on money that we can use to send teams into places or have groups of letter carriers help with route inspections or the joint statement stuff or anything else that comes along. When we can train folks to do things, and we have been very successful in doing that through the years, and I will not worry about using money to do those things so long as the money you're spending is serving the members and helping them get through whatever it is comes up.
Nicole?
Yeah, so we are a $1 billion organization when you take into the account the union and our health plan. And it's important, to understand, how our organization works and how we do the things that we do, and we monitor all of the funds of the union and what we do with the funds of the union. And obviously, the biggest thing that we have those funds for is, number one, a great health plan, and number two, it's representation, right? It's representing our members. It's doing whatever we need to make sure they have the representation they need. It has to do with making sure that we do any kind of training that we need. It's resources to fight off the attacks against unions and collective bargaining. It's resources to go out and do the things legislatively that we need to do. It is all those resources for the regional worker compensation employees that we have that help our members with their claims. It's our regional grievance assistants that help with grievances out in the field and branches that need help. It's all those trainings. It's the legislative and political organizers that are working on, our PAC and are working on educating our members. So yes, you should know that the union is we are very strong, and we have resources to do the things that we need to do to help you and and also, the other thing I was going to say is that, when things come up, we use those resources for crazy things that the Postal Service is doing as well, and the crazy things the administration is doing. So I have lots of experience with that.
Mike?
Yeah, it is humbling. The union is a lot of different facets, and the economics of the union is something that you really have to take to heart and not just jump in and make drastic decisions. We have four main sources of income. We have dues, obviously. We have a building corporation, and real estate all around the country. We have investments that, we make money off of our money. And then we have the service allowance, which is money that we get from the government that as a result of having a health plan in the federal system. And so all that money comes in and you got to manage all that. You got to make good decisions on behalf of the members. I think the second part of the question, are the members reaping the benefit of that? I'd say, hell yeah. I think that there's a lot of things that we do is because we have money. I mean, starting with just all of the training that we provide, the branches get 2/3 of the money, but the national union provides through the regional office or through headquarters provides a ton of training for those branches to help them out, being officers and enforcing the terms of the contract and things like that. But you got now we have the emergency response team. You know, it gets deployed out anytime there's some type of trauma or whatever. We have the Disaster Relief Foundation, provides grants to our members that are dealing with a natural disaster and then gets them the money right away. They don't have to wait on insurance. And then OWCP representation, Nicole mentioned. I mean, that's a great deal for our members that are injured on the job. They get that for free. I would just say, I would like, because we're in such good financial condition and looking at the landscape going forward, I would invest some of our money in seeing if we can help organize Amazon drivers into a union.
15 seconds.
Maybe our union, maybe another union. Chris, I don't think you're supposed to jump in, but you know, I think that would be
15 seconds.
I think that would set us up for the future, and it would be a wise investment of our funds.
All right. Instead of rebuttals, I'm gonna switch it up real quick. Simon and Weiss is the law firm.
Changing the rules?
Yeah, I'm changing the rules. Would you guys, all three of you can rebuttal, but would all three of you retain that law firm, and what grade would you give them? A being the best, F being the worst. I'll start with Mike there for her rebuttal.
I would have a hard time grading them. I would really have to get in and talk to all of our people that work at headquarters, and talk to I would want to talk to our officers and our letter carrier staff at headquarters and get their opinion first before I had any opinion. What I do know, what I do see, because they do a lot of things for us, and the two things that I've had interaction with them is they defend us. And when I say us, even if it's a charge against a branch, like a failure to represent or whatever, even if it's against a branch and not against the national union, we always assign an attorney from Cohen, Weiss, and Simon to represent us against that charge, us being the union, the National Association of Letter Carriers. And in my experience, they do a fantastic job representing us in that entity. And the second thing that I have experience with them is in the collective bargaining process, and we go to arbitration. I would say that we could probably do better in that process. Not saying that it's because of them. I just think we can do better in the arbitration.
1 minute.
Lou?
Yes, Cohen, Weiss, and Simon has been a great law firm for the NALC, and we've been with them since, I don't know, 1970 something, since Vince Zambrano was elected, I believe. And I think they've done an excellent job. And everything that Mike talked about, I think they do a great job putting our cases on when we go to interest arbitration. I think that the case we put on has more to do with our preparation and the things that we want to bring forth to this arbitrator. And so as far as Cohen, Weiss, and Simon is concerned, I would retain them. I would not go looking for a different law firm. And I think they've served us well, and they still serve us well.
Nicole?
Yeah, so we've had Cohen, Weiss, and Simon as our labor attorneys for many years. I agree. I think it's probably back to the 1970s that we have used them. They are one of the top, labor firms in the country. And, I've been working closely with them on numerous different things over the past 16 years, and I would not go looking to replace them. I would give them an A.
All right. I'm going to pass it over to Kathy.
All right. So the NALC represents a membership diverse in race, gender, age, background, geography, and life experience. If elected president, what specific actions will you take to ensure that NALC's national leadership committees, training opportunities, and appointed positions reflects the diversity of the membership? And how will you ensure that those opportunities are based on both inclusion and qualifications? So I will start with Mike.
So can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear the question that good. Is it on my end, or did you guys hear Kathy okay?
Yep, we did. You sound a little. You kind of
So
broke in and out when you first talked, though.
I must have a bad connection or something.
Kathy, just repeat yourself and move close to the microphone.
Oh, was it on her end?
It's
So I sound
it's
fine?
not the computer. So, so NALC represents a membership diverse in race, gender, age, background, geography, and life experience. If elected president, what specific actions will you take to ensure that NALC's national leadership, committees, training opportunities, and appointed positions reflect the diversity of the membership? And how will you ensure that those opportunities are based on both inclusion and qualifications?
So I don't think we have the problem of not having qualified people to represent, the spectrum of membership that we have. Obviously, there's a lot of the membership is changing and has changed. I think that the main thing that we look at when we look at this kind of situation is the number of women, female letter carriers that we have in the craft is ever increasing. It's almost getting close to 50-50 scenario. And traditionally and today, even, I think there's 3 women on the executive council of the NELC out of 28. And that's a really bad ratio. I remember looking at that situation. We were in Houston for a rap session. I can't remember what year. Maybe it was 2015. And I took a picture of the stage and I sent it to then President Fred Rolando. And I'm like, what's wrong with this picture, brother? And, we were talking about it. And he was letting me know there's real challenges out there in building that leadership. But I think now we have that talent pool that's there. We just have to, and I don't want to be harsh about it, but some people got to get out the way to let that next generation of carriers that I think is going to be more reflective of our membership take over leadership roles. And that means more women. That means way more table 2 carriers, because like I said earlier, that experience is a lot different than the experience that I had when I started in 1994. And I think it's important that we have those people in leadership positions that bring their perspectives. And so I'll be working when I make appointments. I want to know, are these people that bring these different perspectives?
15
Because I think that
seconds.
makes stronger as a union. If I'm the president, I would get to make a lot of appointments, and that would be one of the considerations, as well as, do you ever carry mail? I want to know that. That to me, I think that perspective brings a lot to the table too. So thank you.
All right, let's hear from Lew.
Yeah, I believe in including everybody, and it doesn't matter to me what you look like, what you're, anything. All that matters to me is that you wear the blue uniform. And as far as, but I think that you have to be qualified. You can't just get a position because you're a certain this or that. You have to have qualifications. You have to have talent. I'm going to look to pick to bring forward those people that show talent and show that they're qualified. And who you are is who you are. But I respect the fact that we need to keep our mind on diversity too, especially with the women of the NALC and everybody. I mean, what we're looking for is the best people, and that's what we really should be looking for, and looking to bring people along to make them the best person. That's the whole thing, is help and mentor somebody to get to the, to where you are qualified for these positions, and then look at putting people in those positions. And I do agree that if I'm president, once again, and especially with the division thing, if you're good, I'm not worried about whether you were with me or against me or whatever. None of that. It's whoever's going to be going to do the work, because it's really about the members, and it's about all the members. And so that's the best I can tell you.
All right. Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, I think it's real important to, recognize, the changes in our membership and the makeup of our membership, and to be inclusive with anybody and everyone, right? So when you think about when you're leaders in the union, you're always looking for more people to be, involved, right? And it's a matter of making sure that we're making the effort to reach out to our membership, to mentor them, to find out, what their interests are, get them going in that direction. It's a matter of, we've got the Leadership Academy and all kinds of things that we need to do. We should have more groups that are focused on the diversity of our union, because I certainly, you mentioned it earlier, somebody mentioned it earlier, the women in the NALC. Well, I understand that. I was the first female president of my branch. I was the first female state president for my state of Nebraska. I was the first female REA to be appointed to work in Region 5, right? So I understand, in looking at the makeup of our union and including the diversity that we have, because it is an absolute strength, right? Absolutely.
Thank you, guys. So do we have any rebuttal, Mike?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, there's something that is going on right now that is a problem, and that is we got these training programs, the NALC University, and there's a bunch of our people that are narrators and presenting on different topics, and maybe about 10 or 12 people total, and there's not a single person of color in the whole group. And I don't know how that happened and who made that mistake and who lapsed and who didn't make sure that when we present something to the membership that it looks like the membership of the union. And that was a mistake. Whoever did that was a mistake. We need to fix that immediately. And I have brought that to the attention of the people that put that together, and I don't know how quickly. I know they're adding people, so hopefully they'll be able to add people and fix that immediately.
Anybody else want a rebuttal? Okay, with that, the next question is mine as well. It is also on diversity. Diversity is more than having different people in the room. It also means making sure every member has a meaningful opportunity to be heard, participate, and advance within the union. As NALC President, how will you identify and remove barriers that may prevent women, minorities, younger members, and other underrepresented groups from becoming active and advancing into leadership? And how will you measure whether your efforts are actually working? And we'll start with Lew for that.
Yeah, I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing throughout my career. Is what I'm planning on doing. And I've always supported, I mentored I didn't mentor, but I married a national business agent who happened to be a woman. She was Kathy Baldwin from Region 10. She was the first president of Beaumont, Texas. She was an RAA. She was an arbitration advocate. She was RAA for 12 years, national business agent for 8 years, elected twice. And when you talk about the history of women in the NALC, I believe she gets sold a little short, to be honest with you. Then I can give you Monica Walker. She is a regional administrative assistant. I mentored her. I recommended her and pushed for her to become the first female RAA in Region 8. And she did become that. I can give you Antonia Shields. And by God rest her soul, she died 2 days before the convention started. But I mentored her. She was the first president of Birmingham Branch 530. She was the first female Alabama State Association president. She was the first. She was the chairperson for the Committee of Presidents. She was strong. She was determined, and I watched her grow, and I kind of learned as much as I ever taught her. But she was a great person and a great NALC representative, and you'll never see another one like it. Then I'll give you my daughter. My daughter's 32 years old. I've been mentoring her since she was born. And she was elected first branch president of branch 462, Huntsville, Alabama, arbitration advocate. She started being a steward when she was still a CCA. She does regional trainings. She worked on the NALC University project from the get, and I wouldn't trade her for nothing. I'd put her up against anybody.
All right, let's hear from Nicole.
Well, I think one of the most meaningful ways to show that women have a place in our union is to elect one as your national president. I have been working with all kinds of groups. I think it's important to be heard. I have spent time mentoring women. I've spent time on roundtables and explaining, some of the challenges we have. I think that should be the case for anybody that feels like they're not being included in our union, because as I said, our union is diverse. And there, we need to change with the times, and I'm willing to do that.
All right, thank you. Mike?
Yeah, Nicole, my daughter would love that answer. We were just having this conversation the other day at the dinner table, and she was talking about how there's never been a woman president of the United States, how that makes her feel. She's 9 years old. We're having this conversation, and I told her you were running for president of the union, and she liked that. And so anyway, she would love that answer. I would just say that. I'm not going to go tit for tat for everybody. If you look at Region 3, we have very strong female leadership in the region, including our presidents of the top 3 branches in Region 3 are women. Always promoted women into leadership, in my opinion, and we have great people, so it's not a heavy lift. The only thing that I would do differently, I think, is that when I'm making appointments as the president, I'm gonna kind of err a little bit, because you gauge people's experience, and then you gauge like their upside in the future. And I think we've erred too far on the experience side and not enough on the the upside for the future. I would take some chances. I would take some risks. I see some people out there, particularly some of our women leaders, that they need to get a more prominent role within this union, and I would not be afraid to do that at all.
All right, do we have any rebuttal? Seeing none, I'm gonna turn it over to, hang on.
Capone.
Is it Greg?
No, it's Capone. Capone's up next.
Over to me.
All right.
So, candidates, what are your stance on pre-arbitrations not being precedent setting, and how would you combat that issue in the future? I'm going to start with Mike.
So our position is that they are automatically precedent setting in the same way that a Step B decision is precedent setting. The parties have the right to agree that something sets precedence at Formal A, and if they can't agree and they send it to Step B, whatever that result is, it automatically sets precedent in the installation. If I take the case to arbitration and a regional arbitrator rules that it sets precedence, the step in between is pre-arb. So in our opinion, it already sets precedent. But if the Postal Service on a particular issue is going to try to argue that it doesn't set precedent and we need it to set precedent, then we have to take that case to arbitration. Because if they're not going to agree to that language, and they're going to, try to make it a one-off. And look, there's plenty of grievances you can resolve as one-offs. Get this thing resolved, move on. But if it's a grievance where you need language that says in the future it'll be handled this way, or this is what is going to set precedent in this installation going forward, if you need that language and the Postal Service is not willing to agree to it, then you got to take that in front of a regional arbitrator to get that language. And I yield my time.
All right, Nicole.
Yeah. No, I think we should absolutely, make sure that that's the case, right? To make sure pre-arb settlements are precedent setting, because I mentioned it earlier when we were talking, that would help with the process itself, because if they're, if they are taking the position that it's not, we want to put language that it definitely is, because what happens is they'll impasse something hoping that they can pre-arb it and have it not be precedent setting and not go to arbitration, which is precedent setting, right? So it's kind of a way that they skirt around, that issue. So I think that's one of the things that is on our platform. That's one of the things that we want to get, that I mentioned earlier, is to make sure that all pre-arb settlements are precedent setting, because then that forces them to actually deal with the grievance at the level that it should be dealt with. I yield my time.
And Lew.
Yeah, I disagree a little bit with the others on this. The only arbitration award that sets precedent is a national arbitration award. Regional arbitrations do not set precedent for an installation. You could have a case that gets ruled by a regional arbitrator one way in a city, and then another regional arbitrator will come in and rule another way. We've had that happen many times. They do not set precedent. Step B decision sets precedent for the installation. A Formal A settlement sets precedent if you say it sets precedent, or come up with a resolution to dispose of future or similar related problems. That is JCAM language that was changed in 2021 as far as Formal A. Now, pre-arbitration settlements, I believe they ought to set precedent, but there's nothing that says it does. That'll be an interpretive dispute. What they are is enforceable. And I'll agree with Mike on this. If they're not going to say it sets a precedent and that's what you need, then you go to regular panel arbitration. But when you get through with that, that doesn't mean that regional arbitration decision sets a precedent. It doesn't mean that. And so the thing is, the way pre-arbs are written, you can't have language at the bottom, what they call canned language, that say this is non-citable, non-precedent setting, all that kind of thing. Can be not used by either party in future cases which may arise. If you have that canned language on there, that's a problem. But there's certainly a pre-arbitration decision is enforceable, like any other decision. Even informal Step A is enforceable. You can't set a precedent for any purpose, but
15
it certainly
seconds.
is enforceable. I'm done. Thank you.
And does anyone have a rebuttal?
Figure Mike does.
No, I maybe I learned something from Lew right there. I have no problem with that. I hear what he said. I'm glad I yielded him my time to him.
All right, Nicole.
Yeah. That arbitrator's decision goes back to that installation, and it applies to them. And then you use it for future grievances. That's what I was referring to.
All right, I'm going to send it over to Murphy.
Hey, good evening at this point. It's 9:30 p.m. Sunday, August 23rd. There is just under 300 people in the Zoom, and I think there's 100 people on YouTube watching this. So my question to the candidates, to Nicole Rhine, Mike Caref, and Lew Drass. So the stand-up slate ran on 4 principles: universal health care, forming a workers' party, 32-hour work week with no loss in pay, and trillionaires shouldn't exist. This slate was running 6 candidates at the 2026 NALC convention for the positions of the AFL-CIO delegates. What are your thoughts after seeing the voting results? And for the listeners that don't know, at the 2026 NALC convention, there were a total of 62,842 votes were casted. The Rhine slate got 33,578 votes, and the stand-up slate got 10,262 votes. The stand-up slate had myself, John Morris, Sarah, Towney, Margot, and Chris Sampieri on it. So I want to give a shout out to them, and I want to hear what these candidates have to say about these results, that Table 2 city carriers took a stand at the convention and ran on principles. So I'll start with Nicole.
No, thanks for the question. I think it's great that you got involved and got, involved in the process, that you were interested in doing those jobs. Let me think about this. I do. I think it's great that you were wanting to be involved but in the end, it was it was the delegates that made that decision, and I wouldn't want to discourage anybody based on that, because I think we're so much better together when we have all kinds of different input and thoughts on what we should do as a union.
Cool. Thank you. I'll pass it over to Lew.
Yeah. As far as the AFL-CIO delegate election, I think what happened in this election, that's not necessarily a reflection of this election, because that was an election that was happening at the convention. So one delegate voted unit rule for their branch. So one delegate got a whole lot more than one vote. When we're voting out here, call it in the street, it's one person, one vote. And so there's nobody that's going to be able to vote 100 times. They're going to vote once. And so the results of that are not necessarily reflective of how anything else is going to happen. I think it's way different. As far as y'all's slate, I think it's great that y'all are coming and standing up like you are. And, well, I guess I can tell you, our branch voted for y'all. So a lot of good that did you. Anyway, but that's the truth. And I think the whole election scene is completely different at the convention than it is out here now because of that reason.
Cool. Thank you. We'll pass it over to Caref.
Yeah, I think my branch did not vote for you guys. I'm not 100% sure, but
time.
We voted in block. You have to check with the president, see how that turned out. But look, I think that the slate thing doesn't help us make good decisions. And to the extent that Nicole picked the AFL-CIO delegates this time around instead of the delegates to the convention picking the AFL-CIO delegates, that's a negative. That's not a positive. Do I think it has a big impact? No, because first of all, there's not going to be, there's not another AFL-CIO convention until 2031, and we'll probably have an opportunity to vote again in 2030 or whatever. The Constitution doesn't say specifically when our election for AFL-CIO delegates has to take place. So I don't know that it's that significant, but if we're going to have a discussion about who we want representing us to the AFL-CIO, there's a better way of doing that than just saying, hey, these are the people I support and you guys should vote for all 7 of them. And I want all the big branches to pool their votes together and vote for them. I don't think that's a good process. I'd like to lay out a little bit more informative process where you get more information about the different people and ask the delegates to vote for who they think best represents the NALC's values when we go to the AFL-CIO convention.
Cool. Nicole, you have a rebuttal to Mike or Lew or anything?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
I'm
Lew?
okay.
All right. And before I pass it along, solidarity with everyone that voted at the convention and stood in line for nearly 2 hours to cast a vote for the AFL delegate positions. So clearly, the membership is hungry for a fight for the 32-hour work week, for a workers' party, to tax the rich, and universal health care. So maybe our union will start becoming a fighting union like Vince Sobrato once tried to do. I'll pass this over to the next person, which is Greg.
All right, just switching it up a little. So you guys are going to tell us why we should vote for you. Can you tell us why we should vote for one of the other 2 candidates on tonight? We'll just focus on the 3 people here tonight. So Nicole, why should I vote for Mike or Lew for president?
Why should you vote for Mike or Lew?
Yes. What are their qualities? Say something good about Mike and Lew? What would make them a good president?
Say something good about Mike or Lew. Okay. Well, I think they both care about the membership. That's why they're doing what they do. That's why we're all running for president. They care about our union. So I would say that about both of them.
Mike, say something about Nicole or Lew that you would positive.
Well, for Nicole, she's absolutely right. It's time that we had a woman as president of this union, and so that would be one very very good reason to vote for her. And nobody's going to outwork Nicole. She works her tail off for this union, always has, very dedicated. You're not wasting your vote there at all. Lew, I love Lew because he gets stuff done. Lew has a way of cutting through the noise and getting to the answer. And letter carriers need some W's right now. Tired of taking these L's, and Lew is a guy that can get stuff done. Get stuff done.
Lou, same question about Nicole and Mike.
I think Nicole is very talented. She's dedicated. She's a hard worker. Um, I got nothing negative to say about her. And she is a female, and if that's what if we want a woman president, then she's the only woman running. So there's one thing. As far as Mike Caref goes, he's dedicated. He's hard working. He's hard charging. He has a great attitude and all that stuff, and he's a fighter, and I think that's good. But as far as who you should vote for, I don't think you should vote for either one of them. I think you should vote for me. That's what I think.
All right. I'm going to pass it along to Kathy instead of the rebuttal. That question was just for all the positivity in the chat tonight. We're going to give a shout out to the chat. You guys are so positive. So, Kathy, why don't you take the next question? Kathy, you're muted.
Sorry. This one comes from, it's a very similar question to what you guys just answered, but it comes from Justin Landron, Branch 1100. If you were unable to vote for yourself, which one of your opponents would get your vote and why? So I will start with Mike on this one.
Justin, I'm assuming we would have the 4 options, right? Or 3 options in this case?
We'll do 4.
We'll do 4. Yeah, let's do 4.
Okay. I would vote for Lew. I would vote for Lew just because of what I just said. I know Lew's going to get something done. It might not be everything. It might not be everything you agree with or whatever. It might not be the things that you need as a union, but I know he's going to move us forward. And I just want to make sure we at least do that. I think I can do a lot of things for the union as the president, but I'm not. Anyway, I would say Lew because I know that he can at least do that.
All right, Lew, what is your answer to that question? You can't vote for yourself. Where's your check mark going?
It's tough. But I guess, and I don't mean to, I would probably vote for Mike Caref. And the reason being, I think he's hard charging, and I think he has a good idea of what needs to be done. And I think he would do what he could to get along with everybody. Not that Nicole wouldn't do any of that either, so it's a tough question for me. But in the end, I think I'd vote for Mike Caref.
All right, Nicole. Where's the check mark?
That's a good question. Yeah, this question, is not easy because, like I said, these guys are my colleagues. So, good grief. Well, wait. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate it very much.
You're not going to hurt their feelings, Nicole. You can.
Yes, I am.
No, they will. They're too strong. I can look at them right now. They're both smiling, trying to put that.
I don't know what to say. I guess if I think one of the important things, oh my God, is moving forward together, right? I think that's important. for that reason, I'm going to say Lew.
Ooh. Congrats, Lew. You were just elected national president of the NALC.
Yeah, right.
I don't think we need a rebuttal on that, do we, Kathy?
No, I don't think so. But thanks for all your answers, guys. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Greg. Greg, you get it right back in.
I get it right back. All right. This will be a quick one. What does the NALC look like in 4 years? And beyond that, what does the United States labor movement look like and why? We're going to start with Nicole. We'll give you a break. We're going to start with Mike on that one.
Well, I don't know. I think that the labor movement, we're losing density. I think that obviously the organizing, I know that when Trumka was the president of the AFL-CIO, he talked about how the conditions appeared to be favorable for organizing, meaning that you had a high favorability for unions and you had workers getting screwed, and so you put those two things together and you think that people will be flocking to unions and that we would be able to organize people into the labor movement, which makes us all stronger. And that really hasn't panned out. And obviously he's passed away and, we have a new president of the AFL-CIO. And so I don't know where this thing goes. I think we can play our part. And that would be in making sure that delivery in this country is done by a uniformed, unionized letter carrier that's paid a good wage and is treated with dignity and respect. And I think that that does help the overall labor movement to have that presence. We get out there, we do like the food drive on the second Saturday of every year. And a lot of the other unions and the community groups, they get involved in that. And that's us showing our value to the community and having a good contract and having a union presence, which is not guaranteed at all. I mean, this thing is going in the wrong direction. As I talked about earlier, Amazon is stealing our work. The gig economy is stealing our work. All delivery should be us. We're already going to that house anyway. We should be delivering the things that those people are ordering online, or if they're getting a letter or whatever. And so
15.
that is something that we as a union really have to focus on. And I think that would help the entire labor movement if we were able to play that role and to help organize the delivery drivers that are not in unions right now.
Lew?
Yeah, what does the NALC look like in 4 years? I'm going to assume I'm getting elected. So here's what I think. I think that we have a stronger pack. We have more influence in Congress. We get some of these bills passed. We go and make our best case in front of an interest arbitrator. We'll have done that twice within the next 4 years. I think that we get the division is no longer here. We're all singing the same song together. And if we can do all those things, and the grievance procedure has had something done about it, that we get rid of this backlog that we have. I see that happening within 4 years. I think it's doable. So long as we're all singing, going in the same direction, and show up for rallies when we call them, and all those things that we need from all the letter carriers in the country, not just the union people that go to the meetings, 10%. We need the workroom floor to react as well with us. We all need to stand together.
Nicole?
So I wanted to go back to the bigger labor picture first. When we talked about the AFL-CIO, and I was at the AFL-CIO National Convention this year, and one of the goals that the AFL-CIO had was organizing members, and there were I wish I could remember the exact number, but it was like millions of members, and they had a goal to do it in a certain period of time. Well, they've already reached that goal. So they made a new commitment to organize even more union members going forward. So the labor movement is definitely growing. At the same time, the labor movement is under attack, right? And it's really important to elect officials that support us and support labor unions, because there have been so many attacks made on unions in the last few years. So that's extremely important as well. 4 years as far as the NALC, the NALC I see as being in a much stronger position than it is right now. There are things that we are going to work on. We are going to, we have goals for how we can assist and boost our position. Our team that's put together with our experience will make us stronger in 4 years. All the things that we want to do to address legislation, the Postal Service,
15 seconds.
safety, collective bargaining, route inspections, fixing the grievance procedure, all of those things, we will be better.
Does anybody have any rebuttals, Mike or Lou?
I don't.
No.
Lou? All right, we're
No,
gonna
I'm
move
good.
on. We're gonna move on to Capone has a question.
All right, so we're going to change the direction to the NALC Constitution. What don't you like about the Constitution that if you had the ability to change, you would, or issues you have with it, or things you feel need to be updated? Lou, I'll start with you.
I think the NALC Constitution is time tested as it is. The one thing that I think has become a problem is the Article 10 charges to the national officers. And people might not like me saying that, but, the floodgate has opened up. So anybody can make charges against anybody because they made a decision that you don't like. And that can be problematic. Maybe sometimes some Article 10 charges, they have merit and all that. And yes, we have to have a investigator and all that stuff anytime you have charges. But you cannot spend all your time dealing with charges when we have all these other problems. And I think that we're spending too much time on charges. You see that in branches sometimes. When branches have division, then you have somebody charges this one, somebody charges, then they charge the other one, and it goes on and on and on. And the branch is getting nothing done. All they're doing is having charges go against each other. Now, Nicole and I both know about this because we both served on the Committee of Appeals. And so whenever somebody files charges and the branch rules a certain way, lots of times they're going to appeal to the Committee of Appeals. And if that don't work for them, they're going to go to the convention. And, eventually we got to spend our time focusing on what we need to be doing instead of defending charges that are sometimes, I'd say, they don't have the kind of merit they should. That should be few and far between when somebody gets charges against them, not just over and over and over like
5
we've been
seconds.
doing. That's it.
All right, Nicole?
I was sitting here, racking my brain, of anything that right now I could think of that would want to change. I agree that our constitutions have been in place for a very long time, right? We are, over 130 years old. So, and I think that the delegates at the convention have done a very good job of updating the Constitution when it's needed and where we need it to. I think they do a good job of keeping it, it working. I'm not saying that there's never anything that we wouldn't need to address. I'm just saying right now, I couldn't put my mind on something that the delegates haven't already done to improve our Constitution.
All right, and Mike?
So I have a couple of things that I would like to probably change in the Constitution. Of course, there's a whole process for it. And trust me, I'm not going to be the type of president that just makes the decision for the union. You follow the process. But I would form a constitutional committee similar to the way branches have bylaw committees to look at some of these things. there's two things that jump out at me, and maybe there's other things that you kind of want to look at a whole bunch of things. You'd want to get ideas and brainstorm from people all over. But one thing I don't like is when there's two branches in one installation. I hate it. My experiences with that is that it doesn't work. They can bid, and if you bid on a route, you end up in a different branch. I think that the whole concept of membership in a union, when you join the Postal Service and you get assigned to a particular post office, that indicates what branch you're in. And that's that. And I think there's a better way of doing it. We'd have to look at how do we want to amend the Constitution? Either have a vote of the carriers that are there, or let the business agent decide, or let the executive council vote on it, or some way that's agreeable to everybody where you end up with one branch in an installation. We're seeing that a lot in the SDCs. We had it before with the duos. The other thing I see in the Constitution, and this came up with Brother Michael Rivera, is that he was suspended by his branch, and his branch made a horrible decision. And they made a decision that wasn't based on the Constitution. The Constitution says for a branch to suspend a member, they have to violate the Constitution themselves. Like that member has to violate the Constitution. There was nothing in the charge against Brother Rivera that said he violated the Constitution, but still, he was not a member of the union. And matter of fact, the rules for the election is you got to be a member in good standing as of June 1st. He wasn't a member on June 1st because he got suspended by the branch. Eventually, it got overturned by the Committee of Appeals. I would look at maybe saying
15
that
seconds.
if you want to, in the constitutional language, if you want to say that someone is suspended in their branch, if they appeal that decision, they're not suspended until the Committee of Appeals has the chance to rule on that. That's what I would say on that.
All right. Does anybody have a rebuttal or anything to add to it?
I got rebuttal. I needed 3 minutes. I wanted to rebut what Lew was talking about the charges. Look, I love the Article 10 language. It allows any member of the union. So you vote for your officers and you're stuck with them for 4 years, except if that officer is derelict in their duties and or they violate the terms of the Constitution, you can bring forth the charge, and that charge has to be investigated, and then there's a process. And I think that that's a good thing that we have that as members of the union. That doesn't mean, and Lew's not on the executive council right now, really, we spend more time talking about what to do with the charges than the time that it would take to just appoint a damn investigator, like the Constitution says, and move on. The investigator doesn't have to open up a Supreme Court type inquiry. The investigator sometimes can make a phone call and get the thing resolved. Maybe it's a miscommunication. I just want to make sure that if a member brings forth a charge and that allegation is that that officer either violated the terms of the Constitution or was derelict in their duty, then we're going to follow the Article 10 process, because that process is there for the member of the union. And it's not too burdensome and cumbersome upon us, and it's not nothing else.
All right. Does anybody else have a rebuttal? All right. With that, I'm going to send it over to Chris Presampieri.
Hi, thank you. So just want to figure out what we're doing here. All right, let me just ask one question here. One for me. For anybody who's ever written a repair slip, I don't know how it is everywhere else, but our vehicles come back in almost worse condition from the VMF. This has been a constant problem at my office and many other people's offices. I'm the safety guy, so when someone says my horn's not working or my e-brake doesn't work, I tell them to write it up, and then it comes back, it's not fixed, or it's not fixed properly, and then people lose faith in writing anything up. And we've had tie rod snap, we've had vehicles have fallen, these LLVs are falling apart, and they're dangerous. And every time I bring up to management, well, we can't. There's always like, well, they're different than from us, we can't do anything. But what would you do to ensure that that members can write things up and it will be taken care of? It'll be done with quality. And when they get it back, it'll be brought back in a better condition. And I'll give that to Nicole.
Yeah, I mean, if you're sending up something that it's not getting fixed coming back, that's definitely an issue. So, whether it's, initiating a grievance or whether it is dealing with it and talking to, counterparts at the Postal Service, but that's I mean, that's unacceptable. So, you know, when that happens, file a grievance. If there's no resolve to that, you know, we absolutely need to deal with it at whatever level of the union that we can. It's
Next
too
up,
important. It's too important. Yep.
I got Mike and then Lew.
So this is the classic example, what I was talking about earlier. There's no accountability in this organization. The VMS is a headquarters, division of the Postal Service. And so your postmaster, your POOM, your district manager can't tell the VMF what to do. And when the VMF doesn't do their job in repairing the vehicle, then there's no recourse for anyone. And it just falls into that postal black hole that we see every day as letter carriers that is just so frustrating. So how do you solve that problem? One way would be to have language and negotiate that the VOMA be a letter carrier craft position. Negotiate that into our collective bargaining agreement and make it so that we would take care of ourselves, in other words. Of course, when you tag the vehicle, if it's not safe, and it's hard to do, you really, really don't want to be that kind of person where you're like, I'm not going to go out and deliver the mail because of something with the vehicle. But sometimes we got to be sticklers. I'm not taking that vehicle. I'm not. You want me to walk to the route? What do you want me to do? I'm not taking that vehicle because it hasn't been repaired and it's unsafe. The other thing I would say, and I don't know exactly if this came up in the question, but I know it's a big deal that we still have these LLVs that don't have air conditioning out there. The UPS contract, they were able to negotiate language about air conditioning. We need to negotiate language that has a clear timeline for when we're going to get the next generation delivery vehicles and when these damn unsafe LLVs are going to be tabled and put out of commission so that carriers can have safe vehicles when we're out there performing our duties.
And then Lew.
First of all, I agree we need a new fleet of vehicles. That's very obvious. But to your specific question, if you write your vehicle up and it comes back and it's not fixed, I agree with the idea of filing a grievance. But that letter carrier has to stand up and say, hey, it's not fixed, and write it up again. Yep. And not get in the vehicle and drive it. If it's unsafe, it's unsafe. If the horn doesn't work, if the tire's flat, are they going to, drive the vehicle anyway? No, they're not. And they shouldn't do that if the horn doesn't work or there's some other safety issue, if the seatbelt is broke, anything like that. We should just not drive the vehicle, and we shouldn't have to drive the vehicle. If they give you a direct order to go drive an unsafe vehicle, then you have a decision to make, but I don't think they're going to do that. And as far as getting the VMF to do their job, I agree with Mike. We do need some accountability, but I don't know if that's the story every time. If it is, then they're not really going to the VMF and somebody's not really looking at the vehicle. They're just sending it back to you is what they're doing. And you have to send it back to them. Just like if management says, oh, you don't need this overtime, and you do need the overtime, you call them and you say, what do I do with it? You got to bat the ball back. You can't just let it go. And that's something that every letter carrier has to participate in if you want to really make a difference. That's about it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for rebuttal? If not, then it's 10 o'clock. Do we want to move for closings? That sound good for closing remarks from people? If so, I'll go rotating order here. I will go with Mike, Lew, and Nicole.
Just 4 minutes closing, we're done?
Yeah, and then we'll see. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, closing remarks, and then maybe we'll have a
We might ask you to come back.
We might.
Do we get rebuttal on the closings?
Yes. 10-minute rebuttals, though, which is weird. We're going to change it up a little bit. So get ready. Get some popcorn, folks. Yeah.
All right. So I'm a candidate for president. You're hearing from two other candidates here today. There's another person that decided not to attend this debate, and we'll leave that alone right there. You guys, as members of the union, have a choice to make on what direction you want this union to go in. I'm prepared to be your president in all senses of the word. The president is the person that obviously negotiates the contract for us. The president is the person that we talked about some of this stuff today, interprets the Constitution. The president is the person that makes rulings, that makes appointments, is the face of our organization to the Postal Service, to the media, to Congress. The president is the person that chairs the convention, which is the supreme body of the union, and chairs the executive council, which is the leadership body of the union in between conventions. And so we have a really big decision to make. I think that it's been in everyone's interest that President Renfro did not run for another term, opens up the field so we can really look at who the candidates are. I've been going around the country for the last 2 years, allowing or wanting to let carriers get to know me. I think it's a very good thing that the letter carriers, not just the kind of inner circle of the NALC, but average letter carriers all over the place have gotten to know me as a person, what I think, what my plans are. I have a very extensive platform, which you can find on the website. We did pass out hard copies. Hopefully, we wanted to get one to every branch. Hopefully, someone from your branch did get the hard copy and brings it back to you guys. But if at the very least you can go on the website, you can read it, you can listen to it, you can watch it on YouTube, and you get an idea. Hey, here's what my plans are for this union. I want to make this a fighting union. I want us to have a future going forward, which right now our future is very much in peril. And so the cornerstones of the campaign are that we're going to get a contract that we deserve and that we can get under the law. People talk about, the right to go out on strike. We don't have to go out on strike because they did that in 1970, and we got the language in the Postal Reorganization Act that says pay and benefits have to be comparable to similar levels of work in the private sector of the economy of the United States. That gives us great leverage. That allows us to get the contract that is going to be much better than the one we have right now and solve the problems. I'm going to be very, very aggressive with the Postal Service. I'm going to force them to negotiate. I'm going to force them to spend time dealing with the issues that letter carriers have. And then we're going to, within that process, we're going to fix the grievance process because the Article 15 language does need to be updated and it needs to be enforced. And I've been a very big advocate for enforcement of the terms of the dispute resolution process. Some of the other colleagues have not. They have not been voices for getting us the contract that we deserve. They have not been, I'm talking about other people running for president. They have not been the voice of people that, they have not been the voice to say the contract that we deserve. They have not been the people that have tried to make a change in the grievance process in the way that I have and the role that I've always played. And then you look at the United States Postal Service and the waste and the dysfunction and the no accountability. And then you say, what is the future of us as letter carriers within the delivery market? We lost 11% market share in delivery to Amazon last year. If that continues, we're not going to have a postal service because we know first class mail is going to continue to go down, and the parcel volume, which is the delivery of the future, has to come to us if we're going to be that unionized, uniform delivery mechanism for America going forward. Seconds. We have to get united as a union. And I think that once we have a vision and we're clear about where we're going, and I bring the passion and the carriers know that an actual letter carrier is representing them as their president, I think that brings everyone in, and there's nothing that we can't accomplish together as letter carriers.
All right. Thank you for that, Mike. Next is Lew.
All right. I already talked about why I believe I'm most qualified for president as far as positions I've held. You can add to that shop steward, arbitration advocate, director of education, vice president, president of the Alabama State Association. I believe I have the most experience at negotiating at the national level out of any of the candidates. Like I said, I've never done the financial side of this. I haven't done it, but nobody else has either. What I have done is served as chief spokesperson on 3 different contracts for bargaining for work rules. And I've done Article 8, 12, 15, 16, 17, 19, 28, 30, and 31, and led bargaining for those things and all the memos that go along with that. I have negotiated Also, the JCAM updates, I've done that 3 times. That is a negotiation between us and headquarters. Every word is a negotiation. I've settled many national cases. One of them is 1769. I didn't sign it, but I negotiated it. That's about projection time for office and street. I negotiated the first CCA conversion memo. That's M1824 in August 30th of 2013. That's now a memo in the contract. I negotiated the F-15C manual, which is relocation benefits, which if you ever get excess to over 50 miles, you will see the benefit of that. And there was 4 issues left outstanding. I negotiated settlement for that. That's M1832. I negotiated the arbitration scheduling procedure. And I want to use that document to bring that back to life and solve and help solve the regional arbitration backlog, using things like bringing an arbitrator in for a week, doing representative cases, getting extra dates, those kinds of things. Step B, we need to have our more backup teams activated. We need to bundle cases. We could do impasses with one line. Everything from full way is brought forward. We've talked about that at headquarters before. Those are some elements that would get a whole lot of cases through. And we have to do some kind of, we're a team like we did in New Orleans or Louisiana for New Orleans in Gretna, where you go in there and you solve some of the backlog cases at B. And the thing is, what you really have there is you'll have an issue from a certain city, and it happens over and over and over and over because there's no accountability and they don't comply. So you could put cases together and solve a lot of cases with one decision, or impasse them and put them in front of an arbitrator, and each case will be resolved in the same manner. As far as the workroom floor environment, I want to expand the JWIP process, Joint Workplace Improvement process, and use teams like I was talking about for joint statement on violence and behavior situations. So those things, you could get a lot done, I think, on the workroom floor environment with both of those, using both of those things. Training, I've done all kinds of training. I created the Advanced Formula and Beyond program. I created the Arbitration Advocate Training program. I authored the 2018 NALC Route Inspection Guide. I created the Grievance Starter concept. I wrote a lot of them grievance starters, all them things you're using today. And one thing I'll do is I'll reinvent the Formula and Beyond training. I would like to start a training, something I always wanted to do, a branch president training. You make branch president, there should be a training for you. I would like to do
10
that.
seconds.
And new branch presidents come in. I'm almost done. Anyway, safety, I think we should expand those safety captains' role. The heat safety, we shouldn't depend on some video. We should be talking about this on the workroom floor with each other to make sure that we don't have anybody that goes down with a heat situation. And educate all of our letter carriers about the symptoms. When you get the symptom come over you, you don't wait. You call for help right away. And that's something that everybody should naturally know, but they don't. As far as legislation goes, everything I said, plus doing the reforms, because we have to make the Postal Service financially stronger. And that's going to be part of our interest arbitration case as well.
Okay, thank you for that, Lew. And finally, Nicole.
Yeah, thanks for putting this together tonight and allowing us to have the opportunity to talk to the members. Just to reiterate, I am an active letter carrier from Lincoln, Nebraska, and I wanted to give you a little more information on my experience because, the president of our union has to be able to work on all kinds of different things. They have to be knowledgeable about everything in the organization. So I started out as a steward. I was a steward in my branch. I was the branch secretary. I was the branch president, where I dealt with management all the time, filed grievances, represented my members. I was also an arbitration advocate. So I have advocacy training, and I used to go in and arbitrate for our members. I was the state president for the Nebraska State Association. So I have a lot of experience in dealing with legislative issues. I've worked with the AFL-CIO, so I have lots of contacts over at the AFL-CIO. I've been doing that for years. I was an REA where I dealt with the daily problems that come into the National Business Agents Office. I dealt with all kinds of contractual things there. Then I became the Assistant Secretary Treasurer, where I dealt with the Constitution and bylaws and had oversight of a lot of different things over my time there. I was over Customer Connect. I dealt with DRT. I was part of the bargaining committees. I've been part of the bargaining committees for 17 years. And I've actually written language as well. I have, in my role as Secretary Treasurer, I have done many things. I've created training. I've created branch officers training. I deal with all kinds of issues in helping branches. I know the financial ins and outs of our union, and I understand all of that. And I'm coming in with a team that is experienced and ready to work on day one and be laser focused on all the things that we have to address. And I'm very excited to be on a team with the folks that we have. I really believe in them. I really believe that we have the experience we need to start on these issues on day one that are so important. And there are so many issues that we need to address, right? We have to, be focused on the collective bargaining. We have to be focused on legislation. We have to get together with our partners, and we have to come up with ways that we can do things for the Postal Service. We have to do legislation in order to address the issues with the pre-funding and having the money invested. We have to have legislation that would work towards raising that borrowing authority for the Postal Service. There are so many legislative things that we need to be working on, and also be focused on the legislative things for our members. We will be focused on improving things and for letter carriers. We're looking into how we can improve safety on the street. We want to deal with the heat safety. We have ways that we want to improve the DRT process. We have ways that a plan for dealing with all of those things. And I have experience in all areas of the NALC, and I have spent my career working my butt off for you, and I will continue to do that with the team that I have. Thanks.
I'd like to say a few words to close it out a little bit from Postal Rosies, if that's okay. Thanks. So I just want to take a moment to thank each of the candidates for coming on here, and most importantly for your willingness to serve our union. We have a great union here, and we need some great leaders. Running for office takes a lot of courage because you're putting yourself out there, putting your ideals out there and your record out there. And whether we agree with your positions on them or not, you guys deserve all the respect for doing as much. And I want to thank everyone who participated tonight, especially Next Generation letter carriers, for agreeing to do this with the Postal Rosies. I really had a lot of fun with you guys putting this together. So I appreciate that. And also the people who took the time to listen. Engaged and informed members makes our union stronger. Elections can sometimes divide us, but when all the votes are counted, we are all brothers and sisters of the same great union, the NALC. Those challenges facing letter carriers are bigger than any one candidate campaign or election. So to all of our candidates out there, thank you for stepping forward and for sharing your vision. And thank you for your commitment to the NALC. And to our members, listen, ask questions and get involved. But most importantly, vote. Thank you guys. Thank you, everyone. And have a great night.